and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the Fast and Furious Touring Car Racing Series you all know and love around the world, that is the Alpha Touring Challenge. In its sixth season, of course, this championship continues to draw closer and closer to its curtain call closure, with it being at round 12 of 13 today. We've still got 2 more rounds to go, and indeed unresolved championships at that, with all 3 championships currently completely wide open. But with them being wide open going into today, you can imagine that we could see by the end of the day some closure on certain championship calendars, because it is none other than Road Atlanta which plays host to our drivers here in our penultimate round. Located in the state of Georgia in the United States of America, we have not moved out of the United States since our previous round in the state of Ohio, but we've gone from a highly technical circuit in the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course to none other than the ultimate roller coaster ride of road racing near the town of Brazelton. And who will emerge the victor from today? And indeed, if they do emerge the victor, do they set themselves up with the right amount of momentum when they go down under to Australia in a week's time? We're going to find out all that and more, but as we get ready to go racing with our drivers in the background, first a little admin of course, and welcome to you. You're tuning in to this post-round broadcast for your viewing pleasure, where the racing you see in the background is not happening live. It occurred as of early this week, back on what was Monday the 13th of February, but you can imagine despite the racing not being live, we're going to be bringing it to you as if it were live for your viewing pleasure, and you can tune in via 2 viewing platforms, both of them at live of course. First, you can tune in via YouTube, that's at youtube.com, and search for TX151TX or Paul Walsh. Alternatively, if you're more of a Twitch user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX151 and tune in there. Now, who is Paul Walsh? Who is TX151? Well, allow me to introduce myself. I'm your host and commentator, Paul TX151 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action today, indeed for the remainder of the series. But as we come on to our round for today, what are our times for this broadcast? Well, we can see their times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. Our times are as follows. In just under 13 minutes time, we'll be making our way to the qualifying session, and indeed all our drivers will be out of the circuit looking to set their best possible time, because whilst overtaking is highly possible here at the Road Atlanta circuit in the same calibre, this is a circuit whereby if you could take track position early on, that it could just be the key for you to unlock the ultimate result and steer clear of the rest of the field. And after our 15-minute qualifying session, we'll be going immediately over to the grid for a one and only race day, what with this being another Alpha round, near with the 60-minute feature at 8 o'clock this evening. Also, we've introduced the times, we've introduced the format of the broadcast, and now let's come on to our calendar, which lies in wait for us with only 2 rounds to go, and also give you a quick recap of what was before us as of rounds 11 through to 1. We can see here as we make our way down to the very bottom of the calendar, as of the 13th of February at Road Atlanta, the racing you're seeing today, and after today in a week's time, it will be the season finale in the special round highlighted in pink purple there, that is down under in Australia, that none other than Mount Panorama, Wahulu Mountain, alternatively as we love to call it, the Bathurst Motor Racing Course in New South Wales. And then on the 20th of February, we'll bring the curtain down on Season 6, the Alpha Touring Challenge, and who will be our championship winners, we'll find out then. But predating all of this in today's round, of course, we started off back on the 7th of November in 2022 with our classic season opener in the Alpha round at Belle Isle, and then the city of Detroit. It definitely delivered, as it always does, and as we made our way from the state of what was Michigan to the state of California for the Monterey County Laguna Seca WeatherTech Raceway Circuit on the 14th of November, there we saw our first sprint race round, and the tempo continued, and with it the fiery tempers. Wind forward a week to the 21st of November, in round 3, we made our way across the Pacific Ocean at 2 Fuji Speedway, and then the footfalls of Mount Fuji. We saw the roar down the start finish straight, but also the highly technical latter sector of the circuit, catching many a driver out before we had our first mid-season break for Thanksgiving, and then we returned on the 12th of December for the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit in 3 sprints that are completely unforgettable. And of course, we saw the rise there of the rivalry between Mika Hendricks and Wojciech Swierdowicz. Then we made our way from Japan to continental Europe for the Hungary in round number 5 on the 19th of December, preceding the Christmas Day celebrations for our drivers. And there a number of drivers did come away with Christmas presents in their pocket, including James Carr and Francois Schink in the Alpha race round. But then after the Christmas break and returning as of 2023 on the 2nd of January, we kicked off an all-new year of racing with the continuation of Season 6, with round 6 seeing our drivers take to Donington Park's Grand Prix circuit in the United Kingdom. A circuit that is synonymous with touring car racing, and there it definitely lived up to its reputation, while drivers delivering over the 3 sprint races in the round before they made the way to Austria for the Red Bull Ring Grand Prix circuit. And on the 9th of January, we saw there in the feature race in the Alpha Challenge round that it was all about the battle between Wojciech Swierdowicz and what was that, Logan McKenzie, with Wojciech Swierdowicz continuously being at 1 step ahead and McKenzie giving it everything he could, but he couldn't find a way to get closer than 3 attempts come the very end. Then we made our way to neighbouring Germany, for the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, and whilst not on its perhaps more popular Nordschleife Loop counterpart, the Grand Prix circuit definitely delivered with our free sprint race on the 16th of January, setting us up for the Alpha round at Interlagos in Sao Paulo, Brazil, going over to the South American continent on the 23rd of January, and Interlagos, of course, a circuit that has always delivered in the Alpha Touring Challenge, much like our season opener at the Belle Isle Grand Prix. And as we made our way over to Norway, back to continental Europe for our last visit inside Europe, it was the Rudskogen Motorsenter circuit in Norway on the 30th of January that we brought to a close all of our sprint race rounds. And Rudskogen, living up to its reputation of being a circuit that's hard to overtake at, but our drivers found a way, and we saw plenty of drama in the run to turns 1 through to 4, as our drivers there had to get onto the brakes nice and early on cool brakes on the opening laps, and many went astray and led themselves wide. But last time out, of course, it was round at number 11 on the 6th of February, and in the double header of Alpha Challenge rounds, and of course the return to the United States and the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and there in the technical and twisty circuit, we saw many a driver come unstuck in a major incident as well, which upset the field. There's no doubt about it, a nightmare incident, but all drivers made it out their cars A-OK, and they'll all be back in anger today, looking to try and get as many points on the board at Road Atlanta. And speaking of Road Atlanta, let's introduce it formally. Known in full as the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, and we'll be racing at the full course, of course, and sponsored by Michelin because they are the title sponsor for the circuit. This circuit located in Hall County in the state of Georgia in the United States of America, near the town of Brazelton, is a circuit like no other when it comes to adrenaline pumping thrill rides. Because you can see here from the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com, thank you to them, of course, for their circuit maps and also for their wonderful simulator. This circuit spanning 12 corners is like no other when it comes to combining sweeping corners, elevation changes, and top end tantalizing straight line speed run of the straights, where our drivers making their way all the way around this circuit. They'll find their average lap speed is one of the highest over the course of the season, and we're to take you through a lap here. Of course, the two-dimensional image does not do it justice, but we're going to try to all the same. As they make their way across the start finish line, they'll charge into the uphill right-hander at turn number 1, also where the pit lane exit emerges onto the circuit, and as they head up into the blind crest of turn 2, they'll be braking into turns 3 and 4 over a ridgeline where they can't actually see the corners of the apex curve until they hit the right-hand apex curve at turn number 3. Coming on down through the hill of 4, they'll make their way through the sequence known as the S's, not numbered corners there. They'll be lifted off the throttle and serpentining their way through before they go into the hard and fast left-hander at turn 5. We see many a driver end up getting it wrong in Season 5 in the season finale. Indeed, one of our drivers ended up in the catch fence in a rather horrific incident, but they emerged unscathed with regards to injuries. And as our drivers make their way out of turn number 5, they'll make their way down towards the 2 slightest corners on the circuit at turns 6 and 7. The double right complex there really changed up the tone of the lap for a brief while, but as soon as they emerge from turn 7, it's all about the run and the power as they head through the kinks of 8 and 9 down the back straight, the longest stretch of the circuit, and break the way in the downhill drop to 10A and 10B. The chicane there that was introduced for safety measures as what was the 1980s, if my history serves me correctly, but as our drivers make their way into 10A and 10B, they'll be looking to get on the power as soon as possible coming out to 10B to roll their way up the hill into the blind crest right-hander at turn 11, flat out in the drop to turn 12, and to complete the lap, then they'll carry all the speed to do it again. But you can imagine in the past, where there was no chicane at turns 10A and 10B, it was a flat-out run into turn 11, but it was decided that they did add the chicane in the end for the safety, but still our drivers will be holding nothing back here, and safety is not going to be worth it in terms of points today, or could it be, considering the fact that consistency may just be as key. Well, either way, as we come onto our race rules, we can see here in terms of setup, our drivers bring any setup they would like to the racing. We've seen that throughout the entirety of the season. This is an open setup series. The only stipulation is that car fuel loads have been restricted to 45% for this round, and that of course mandates a pit stop during the race where drivers must take on fuel. The first rule of the Alpha race rule set, we can also see that drivers will receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 13 or more instant points, and they shall be disqualified from the race if they accumulate 16 instant points in total. The following bonus points are available as well, and these applies overall in terms of classification, not individual class classifications. Of course, we have our 2 classes of the Alphas likened to our Pros, and the Deltas which are likened to Pro-Ams, if you will, but there's 1 point for overall pole position, 1 point for the overall fastest lap in the race, 1 point for the Sublime Finesse Award, which is the fewest instance by a single driver over the course of the whole round, 1 point for leading the lap at any point in the race, and that's overall at lead of the race, and 1 point for the Naked Aggression Award, which is the most overtakes by a driver over the course of the round. That's enough rules and regulation. I know what you're all here for. You're here to see the race in action as we return to our screens here and see our drivers making their way on around currently, where we do look to our overall and our Alpha Championship leader here, switching to the Honda Civic Type R as of last round at Mid-Ohio, and it didn't quite work out for him on the strategy in the state of Ohio last time out, but the Polishman Wojciech Swierdowicz, the privateer, continues to lead the way, albeit with advantage slashed to 46 points over his closest rival, Logan McKenzie, and if Swierdowicz can pull off a good result today, then that will be enough to essentially enable him to put one hand on the championship crown, but indeed if he can win today and McKenzie has a disaster of a result, then it may just mean that Swierdowicz wraps up the championship one round early. Because what all of our drivers have to keep in mind today is that this round can be dropped in terms of their drop scores, but the season finale at Bathurst cannot be dropped, so therefore they need a strong result at Australia. Alternatively, they've got to have a whole set of results which go very well in the run-up there, so they can afford to lose Australia. But for Swierdowicz right now, his focus will be on one thing: make the job as easy as possible for going down under next time out and get as good a result as possible. But then again, the switch to the Honda Civic Type R late in the season, a car that's not known for its straight line speed and acceleration, but more so its handling. Is it a gamble that has paid off or not paid off is perhaps the question you'll be asking. We saw at Mid-Ohio it did pay off to an extent, but it was a strategic blunder that really cost Swierdowicz massively after he fought his way all the way from the back of the field, of course being banned from qualifying for the car swap, his second of the season. But in starting from the back of the field and gone from behind that Elantra M, we found him make his way out to P4, and then not putting enough fuel in the car in the pit lane. It meant that he had to come back into the pits to put fuel back in, and therefore finished outside the top 10. The first time he's finished outside the top 10 all season in a single race where he's not been involved in a major incident that has forced a retirement. But as he makes his way down to 10A and 10B, his main rival, of course, in the championship is Logan McKenzie for Yellow Flag Motorsports. And well, right now, as we see the number 4 driver making his way uphill in the Tide Hyundai Elantra for Yellow Flag Motorsports, the challenge for McKenzie is he needs to try and keep his head down and break away from those who are pursuing him. The likes of what is John Lauzon, also James Carr, just named too, Mika Hendricks, another one of those names as well. And that's the thing for McKenzie, he has found himself continuously this season having to play a cat and mouse game with the drivers we just mentioned, whilst also trying to keep Swierdowicz well within reach. And is it going to be a bridge too far for him today? Because of course now the pressure is really on him. McKenzie needs nothing less than a win today. The bare minimum, he needs to beat Swierdowicz by a sizable number of places in order to be able to take this down to the wire in Australia. But it's not just about our Alpha drivers, of course, it's also about our Deltas, and we can see here your Delta Championship leader of 74 points over his closest rival of Jacob Wally. It is none other than Breakfast for Dinner's Justin Rhodes, ahead of his teammate, of course, Wally joining Breakfast for Dinner midway through the season. But Rhodes has been the man to be, and will return to form last time out at Mid-Ohio. Has really seen him now put one hand on the championship crown, and a good result today will see those points continue to ever increase. And if he can pick up another win here, effectively he will be taking the championship with a round to spare, because if he scored 0 points at Bathurst, indeed having to drop rounds, he would have such an advantage, with a grand total, if my memory serves me correctly, of approximately 70 points available at the Bathurst Special Challenge in a week's time. Therefore for Rhodes, it's all about today just putting it to bed with round to spare, and he doesn't have to worry about the risk of hitting the walls on the mountain. But focus on here today, of course, with the amount of grass you can see in the walls being ever close, Rhodes will be wary of the fact that he can't afford to make a single mistake. And well, his other Delta drivers, including Eric Statzer here, the privateer in the 789 Honda Civic Type R, making his way down towards turn number 10. Will Statzer find himself in a battle to get inside the top 3 in the championship, having fallen off of the run of the top 2 recently. But he, of course, keeping his head down and proving to be a very strong defensive driver. We've seen that all season from Statzer, and can he perhaps confound a number of drivers again today? As we wait to go racing, 1.5 minutes to go, we do say a good evening to all of you in the chat, whether it be in the YouTube or the Twitch chat. And of course we must say good evening to firstly what is Jacob Wally, and in fact I shouldn't say good evening because I know a good number of you are based all around the world, so we'll say hello to you instead to avoid any time zone differentiation, because we're all equal here. Well, hello to Jacob Wally there, or Whale Junior 31, who's been looking forward to this broadcast, and as said, hopefully you, as in me as the commentator, are well rested for this. Well, I get the feeling this is going to be a thriller, and indeed if any indication of last season's race at Road Atlanta, and indeed all the rounds leading up to this one in season 6, it's definitely going to be a monster of a round. Also we say hello there in the YouTube chat to Matthew Shepka, also in the Twitch chat to Miss Kitty Louise at 90, and well, good evening to you, Miss Kitty, as well. I'm doing fantastic, thank you. It's Friday evening, a week of work's out of the way, and the best possible thing is on the agenda to kick off the weekend, and that is to cover Alpha Touring Challenge, of course, the ultimate touring car racing series on iRacing. But as we also say hello there to Lieutenant Dan, and also I do believe to Forzy in the Twitch chat. Well, who's my pick is the question from Matthew Shepka there in the YouTube chat. I'm going to be honest with you, I think this is going to be wide open. I don't want to play favourites here. Of course, we've put Swearidge up there, but in the Honda Civic Type R, I think it is going to be an uphill challenge for him. My bet is going to be on Logan McKenzie or Mika Hendricks to be the winners come the end of this one, given the fact that Hendricks has always got fast here, and McKenzie is definitely looking to try and put a win on the cards. But we must cut away, ladies and gentlemen, because the practice session is complete. It is time for qualifying, and we'll be back within the next 1 minute to kick it off for 15 minutes of qualifying action. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying is underway. The green flag waves and are trying to make the way out the pit lane as quickly as possible. Everybody knows the pressure is on immediately today to set the best possible lap time, because this Road Atlanta circuit, the one key thing about it is it rubbers in quickly, and you need to get that time on the board, because as track temperature rises, you'll find that in the end the car starts to wobble and drift, particularly in the opening 5 corners, plus the S's in amongst them, and therefore it becomes ever more difficult to set the ultimate lap time. So all of our drivers will be gunning goal from the outset, but who is going to be on pole, we're about to find out. And as we say hello there to Mark Darnell in the YouTube chat, we should also introduce a newcomer as of this round, round 12 of course, coming in very late in the day to the series, but everybody's welcome. We're already seeing a good number of registrations for season 7 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, which we'll talk more about come the end of the season finale broadcast in a week's time. But we welcome to the series Damon Mitchell here, making his way into turn 7 and joining us in what is the Alpha class, but a rookie to the Alpha Touring Challenge, a brand newcomer to what is the series as a whole, but looking to enjoy touring car racing and going with the Hyundai Elantra S. And what I think it may go well for him, because of course, whilst this is an open setup series with the iRacing balance performance also applying to it, and therefore this does give our drivers a little bit of freedom to experiment with things such as rear wing and also the setup of the car. And that means that certain cars that are favourites, if the setups are fixed, are not quite favourites or set in stone, if you will. We have normally seen the Elantra N has been the #1 car in terms of 1 lap pace, but its weakness is that it does have a very high rate of tyre degradation, and particularly when those front tyres overheat, they are lost very quickly and the driver has to back off immediately. But speaking of backing off there, I believe that is Smith getting it horrifically wrong. That's Daniel Smith going on around there on the exit of the final corner, and that final corner will catch many a driver out as he parks up there and will make his way to the pits. But Daniel Smith making an early blunder there, and it's completely forgivable because you make your way down through turn 11 into 12. The amount of speed you're carrying, particularly if you're in the dirty of another car in front, the car just wants to do one thing in a touring car racing class car, and that is it wants to understeer. These cars being front engine, front wheel drive, as we see there for Walter, he goes around under braking into turn 1, and I think a bit too much rear brake bias on that Veloster N, the Honda Veloster N for Walter, and he'll be looking to dial that brake bias a little bit more forward in order to get it set, and also look to just give himself a bit more time to get that tyre temperature of the car not quite gripping up as much as he wants. But as our drivers make the way on around here on their initial flying laps, we will jump on board with one of our drivers in the near future. We just want to give them a bit more time to get that tyre temperature in, so we can give you an optimum on-board lap with 1 or 2 of our drivers here and show you what it's all about driving the touring car racing class machine around Road Atlanta. Already we have seen in the space of only 3 minutes, if that, a couple of drivers already getting it wrong, and indeed the very best, the ultimate veterans of this series, can be caught out just as easily as the newcomers as they make the way around the Georgia State circuit. But as our time starts to come on in, who's going to be the fastest man out? As we see Jacob Wally, the first driver to get a time on the board there, our Delta driver, and of course the one driver who really has been taking up the fight to Justin Rhodes, his teammate for Brett for Sedena, albeit the fight's normally been more in the race than it has been in qualifying. Rhodes seems to have the qualifying record all said, snapped up and done, much like Connor Achatella in what was season 5 when he took the Delta Championship crown, of course, and that led to him being promoted to the Alpha class for this season. Indeed, for those of you tuning, if you're wondering how you keep track of who's an Alpha and a Delta on the time on the left-hand side of your screen. Well, the Alphas are represented by the blue stripes. Meanwhile, the Deltas are represented by the purple stripes. And as more and more times coming in, we look to Mark Darnell making his way on down the back straight here, getting ready to break his way into the downhill drop. And of course, it's certain machines here which run a lot less ride height compared to touring car racing class cars. So we're talking about things such as prototypes and also GT3. So they're running that low amount of ride height, they actually end up scraping the under tray of the car on the ground there as they make their way in the drop to turn 10A under braking. And we're not going to be seeing any sparks fly from underneath our touring car racing class machines today, where their ride height's been somewhere in the region, if my memory serves me correctly, with an excess of 62 millimeters on the car, both front and rear, due to regulation. But there, as we can see, Darnell drifted slightly into turn number 1, catching the car just in time, but they're carrying a bit too much speed, and the rear brake's just not giving him the ability to grip the car back up as he made his way towards corner apex. But he's caught it this time around as he makes his way on down the hill, and well, as he heads towards the end of the first third of this qualifying session, he's had a taste of what pushing hard here does feel like, as we see. Meanwhile, Robert Abrams coming across the timing line there, and Jacob Wally as well. In fact, Robert Abrams a little bit further behind, and as he comes into the braking zone here, Abrams deciding to switch things up and go to the Honda Civic Type R late on in the season. And well, Abrams, I do believe this is his first car swap of the season, so therefore he is permitted to qualify, because of course the rules state that once you pick a car for the season, you are permitted one car swap to any of the other touring car racing machines. But as soon as you make that second car swap, you receive a qualifying ban for the next round, and that's of course to avoid drivers keep swapping cars to go with the car that perhaps for them is the most ideal from round to round, race to race. But Abrams designed to go to the Honda here. It's an interesting gamble, and will be facing very welcome company in the fact that one man for Talksteer Racing in the Aperture Laboratories machine, and that is none other than Matt Shepka. Matthew Shepka is known in full, the man who's always stayed with the Honda Civic Type R. No matter which way it's gone, he's always tried to get the very most out of this car, and will currently P8, albeit given a little bit of a toe there to Abrams, and therefore Abrams could arguably be quite the beneficiary in terms of quite a bit of lap time. And well, the toe is quite critical here on the straightaways in terms of you can gain up to half a second in the run on down the back straight, and also if you get it right in the run all the way down out the final corners onto turn at number 1. But the opposite is true. If you get a bit too close, then your lap will be heavily compromised as you make your way onto your next lap. And indeed, in the race, you've got to be wary of that dirt air and how it changes the behaviour of the car under braking. But as the drivers make their way down through turn number 12, we jump on board here with Shepka as he takes us around for a flying lap of Road Atlanta. So heading in towards turn number 1 and breaking down the gearbox here from 6th gear to 5th to 4th, and carrying the speed up the hill now as he makes way through 1 up towards the left-hander at 2. Where's the apex, I hear you ask? There it is. Where's turn 3? Onto the brakes, and as he comes down to 3rd gear, he finally sees turn 3 through the left-hander at 4, and now into the exit here. It's all about balancing the throttle as he goes up to 4th gear, lets the car roll through straight lines between the two connectors, and now hitting on the brakes here into turn 5, down from 5th to 3rd as he exits on out. Car wobbling a little bit there, but just about keeps it in a straight line as he makes his way up towards turn 6, accelerated back up through the gearbox to 5th gear, and then back onto the brakes as he rolls his way into the right-hander, dropping down to 3rd gear, and now heading up towards turn 7, braking as late as possible, going for a nice light apex here. 2nd gear, get back on the power. You've got to do it as quickly as possible, because every millisecond you waste not on the power now is going to be deadly in terms of your lap time towards the end of the lap. But in the draft there of the Elantra in front, we're not quite sure who that is. It's one of our Deltas, I do believe. But powering on down now, this is where the Honda's top end will be exposed, unless he's running a lot less rear wing compared to a number of his peers. But he heads through the kinks of 8 to 9, now into the downhill drop for 10A as he looks to his right for his brake marker, looking there for the 100-yard board, and as he brakes on in, car slides a little bit as that's well in front, I believe, as he comes through 10B. A bit of understeer almost catches Shepka out, but he keeps it together over the crest of 11, and down the hill he goes into 12, and here fully committed to the end of the lap. It's a lovely lap from Shepka as he comes on through, and well, does he improve? No, he does not. Half a second off the fastest lap so far, but still for Shepka, it's a good position in P5 in this qualifying session. Has he got a bit more in the tankers? Meanwhile, fastest man at the moment is Dan McFarlane. We have not seen him top the timing charts this season, albeit a late debutant to the Alpha Touring change, but to be fair, better late than never, as they say. And right now, McFarlane's definitely making himself felt here in the number 23 Elantra as he heads on down onto another lap very shortly. And as he rolls his way on through, we're not seeing anybody in the Audi RS3, the car that's a bit of a unicorn in terms of when when it does appear, we love to see the German machinery, but of course not quite on the pace of the other machines available currently, according to the current iRacing balance of performance, and those other machines being the Honda Civic Type R and the Honda Elantra N and Veloster M. But as we do see McFarlane making his way down through 3 into 4, Eric Statzer lose in the rear of the car there on the curbing of 4 as he comes down through the S's, and Statzer getting caught up down the grass slightly. Oh, goodness me, there's contact. I believe that's with Swira Doric, who's going to the back of the 2 drivers coming together midway through the qualifying session. Of course, they can immediately turn and reset to the pits, but that's not what you want at all, with respect to the fact that when you're in your qualifying session, you want to be in a rhythm, and we haven't really talked about what does it take here to do a good lap at Road Atlanta. Well, of course, we saw from Shepka's perspective what it takes, and that is you need to know exactly where the limits are on this circuit. This is the one circuit, we've said it time and time again, all circuits you do need to know exactly where you want to be back on the throttle, where you need to brake, how much speed you can carry, but here, those limits you have to have programmed in. It's got to be muscle memory, because if it's not, one of two things will happen. Either you'll be slower than where you need to be, and your lap time will not compare to your peers, or alternatively you'll end off circuit, whether it be running straight off with a bit of understeer, or alternatively just simply trying to carry too much speed and going into one of these corners under braking. You'll find that rear end lifts up and goes round, as we've seen so many get it wrong into turn number 1 so far. But as we see Spencer Cockayne for Hasselhoff Motorsports make his way on down the back straight here, just passing that James Carr there, who peels off to the side of the racing line. The other thing as well you do need to have is that confidence in your own ability. You need to be able to remind yourself when you're braking into a good number of these corners where you don't see the apex curve until you've already gone through the whole braking process. You need to have that confidence in your ability to remember the lap, remember the circuit, remember where the corners are, and so it is an ultimate test of a driver's ability around here at Road Atlanta. And as we do see Cockayne heading across the timeline, a 32.291, still P23 overall, and what equates to P8 in the Delta class, but improving a little bit, but still the best part of what is almost 2 seconds there of a Ryan Volter, who's just made his way across the timeline and into turn 1. But again, a drift there under braking into turn 1. That rear brake bias really catching so many drivers out here, and of course they do want to run as much rear brake bias as possible for the simple reason the more rear brake bias you run, it naturally means that the rear brakes will do a little bit more work under braking compared to the front brakes, and in return what it does, it effectively causes the rear of the car to slide on entry under braking into the corner. It gives you that extra rotation, but of course the greater the amount of rear brake bias you do, the more unsettled the rear of the car becomes. It becomes unstable effectively, and that's why we're seeing so many drivers slide into corners, and it becomes an uncontrollable slide, and then they'll have to correct. And of course we wouldn't expect slides in a car that's mostly prone to understeer, but there we are. That goes to show the limits that our drivers are willing to push to and beyond in order to get the ultimate lap time as we head into the final 4 minutes of this qualifying session. And one driver who knows all about pushing the limits in the Honda Veloster N is none other than Francois Schinck for Beavers Energy, as he makes his way down the hill, still running the tribute livery to the 2-year anniversary as of last round for the Alpha Touring Change Series. Just over 2 years old now, and going from strength to strength as we see Schinck heading on down towards turn number 6, heading up towards the braking zone. And as he heads onto the anchors very shortly, all thinking about here how he could deliver one more ultimate lap, and going for a bit of a distant tow there off of the back of Shepka, and that may assist him on this lap. But I think if he stays this close and gets ever closer on the next one, he may start to be compromised there, with the Veloster just having a little bit more punch out the corners we typically see compared to the Honda Civic. Albeit the two cars quite similar in terms of handling characteristics, but the one advantage that the Honda does have over the rest of its peers is its tyre degradation. The Honda very conservative on its tyres, unless of course the driver pushes the car well beyond its limits, but typically we have seen the Hondas go the longest in terms of that comfort on tyre life. But as we see Schinck make his way on down, with John Lauzon and stepping aside there, the two teammates negotiating away around one another, and as Lauzon makes his way over the crest and down into the dip for turn at number 12, well, he's only got 2 more laps to go, and we jump on board here with Lauzon as he takes us around for a lap in the Elantra M. Then up towards turn 1, currently P12 overall, P11 in the Alpha class. He breaks his way into the opening corner, steadying the shift as he makes his way through in 4th gear, now up the hill towards turn at number 2. Bringing the car in here, taking the tighter entry line compared to Schinck. It's interesting to see there, Lauzon not having that comfort to swing the car, but Schinck moving out the way there with a compromise line through 3 into 4, and as they now come down into the S's, carrying as much speed as he can here, bringing it into a straight line to break into turn 5. You can see they're having to fight with the steering wheel as he takes a bit too much curve and it sends the car wide, And with that, Laos on that wheel being invalidated lap, and a lap that is not going to count. He's going to have to go again, but so easy to make a mistake, and Laos on there just getting caught out with those raised apex curves through the S's into 5 and under braking the car, just wobbling a little bit too much. But as he now gets himself set once again, we look here to James Carr, who makes his way onto another lap. Only P9 on 32.256 and still looking for more lap time there. And James Carr, I think, will be a little bit worried at the fact that right now it is Logan at McKinsey, one of his biggest rivals at the top in the battle for P2, and the right to hunt down Wojciech Spiridaric in the overall and the Alpha Championship. Well, for Carr, this is not the qualifying session he wants it to be. And meanwhile, here comes Logan McKinsey, and we'll jump on board here with our second place driver in the championship and our current pole sitter for another lap at Road Atlanta. On his way in to the opening corner here, fighting with the steering wheel every step of the way into the corner. The man is absolutely possessed to swing the car in as he makes his way into 2, breaking into 3, coming on through the right hander and taking a bit too much apex curve there. You can see it almost being sent across the grass at turn 4, but how he keeps it on there, that's testament to his abilities. He comes down through the S's, absolutely in a tug of war with the steering wheel of the car, and as he comes through turn 5, driver off in front there, that's not going to phase him whatsoever as he makes his way up towards turn 6. Well, I can tell you one thing right now, if we're looking for an adrenaline thrill of a lap, we're getting one as he heads into turn 6, breaking down to 3rd gear, attacking it there with a braking point of 50 yards as he brakes ever later into turn number 7, and immediately gets to the power as soon as he reaches the apex curve. And now in the toe of the car in front, he's going to gain a bit more straight line speed. This will be worth about 3 to 4 miles an hour in the long run as he builds his way up through the gearbox, up into 5th gear, and up towards 6th very shortly in the long charge. And as he gets ready to brake, James Carr goes for original pole with 1 more lap to go on where's a 28.386, and right now McKinsey only half a tempo as he breaks his way into the chicane. Onto the anchors he goes here, and as he rolls his way through straight line between the 2 curves, that's exactly how you want to do it. Carries much speed up the hill, now going up through the gearbox here, and it's all faith in the racing gods now as he makes his way down for 11 into 12, runs on through. What's it going to be for McKinsey as he comes to the timeline? It's faster, but it's not enough, and he will not have another lap as he crosses the line literally a second after the checkered flag comes out. It's a 28.408. Meanwhile, more lap times are coming in. Matt Shepka goes P7 on 28.703. John Lauzon moves up to P9 on 28.727. Meanwhile, we can see then the rear of the picture of Franz washing into the pit lane. More drives coming through. Mika Hendricks of Hassholz Motorsports comes across the line, moves up to P3 on a 28.447. Then further, that's Kurt Smith crossing the line, improves to a 29.455, but it's still P17. More drives still to make the way on around, including where's Adrian Fedorowski, as we see here, currently our second lowest lap time as he makes his way into the braking zone at 410A. And well, can he find his way a little bit further up the order here, given the fact he's currently 2 tenths off of Volta's time? We'll hope he can do so, but as he makes his way through 11, in fact, it's not going to count here. It's not a good lap, and he decides to abort, so he'll not be moving any further. Meanwhile, James Carr coming on down. He's just gone the fastest of everybody in Sector 3. As he comes to the timeline, is it even going to be a fast lap? It is. It's a 28.356, and Rhodes improves to P10 on a 28.739, but James Carr takes overall an alpha pole position in the end by what is there, a margin of half a tenth, and Justin Rhodes, P10 overall, is your Delta pole sitter. As soon all these laps stand as they make their way very shortly to the grid for round number 12. But a thrilling qualifying session, and James Carr leaving it ever so late, but getting the job done when it matters most, with Logan McKinsey starting alongside him on that front row. I think we're going to be seeing sparks flying to turn number 1, ladies and gentlemen. And well, I don't know about you, but I definitely cannot wait to see the Carr-McKinsey rivalry continue its way into turn number 1. But as we do just wait now, place your bets, because we'll very shortly be going to the grid. If you did take part in this race, of course, no spoilers in the chat, please, for all the guys and girls tuning in at home. Indeed, for us at the commentary booth, I've made my best efforts to avoid any potential spoilers, and this is completely new to me, but we are in for a cracker here today in the state of Georgia. Beautiful sunshine, a little bit of cloud, the ripe conditions we need, and we are only moments away from heading to the grid. Well, as our drivers make their way to the grid, this is how they line up for the penultimate round of the season. James Carr for breakfast for dinner takes pole position by half a tenth in the end over Logan McKenzie for Yellow Flag Motorsports. Behind him on the second row is Dan McFarlane with a stellar qualifying performance, joined by Franz Washington from Beaver Buzz Energy. Mika Hendricks from Hassel's Motorsports and Matt Shepka for Talksteer Racing make up your third row, followed up by John Lauzon for Beaver Buzz Energy and Justin Rhodes for breakfast for dinner. In the end, your Delta pole sitter in P8 overall. Wojciech Swierdowicz, your overall championship leader and Alpha championship leader. P9 is the best he could do today. Joined on the fifth row for breakfast for dinners, David Bauer. And then on the sixth row, we have Connor Achitella for Yellow Flag Motorsports, joined by Jerome Bajulas for Beaver Buzz Energy. Behind him on the seventh row, we have the pair of Robert Aarons for Yellow Flag Motorsports and Jacob Wally, your breakfast for dinner second place Delta driver. And it's Daniel Sedina for Hassel's Motorsports, joined by Damon Mitchell on the eighth row. A good qualifying session for Damon Mitchell on his debut, with Kurt Smith for Not Last Motorsports and Eric Statzer side by side on row number 9. And then completing the top 20 on row 10, it's Daniel Smith and Mark Darnell. Now on row 11, Aaron Lahr for Talksteer Racing and Ryan Volta for the Privateer. And then we have the pair of Adrian Fedorowski from QZ Motorsports and Spencer Cockayne on your 12th and final row. They make up the grid, and we are very shortly awaiting the lights. We're only waiting on one more driver to take their way to the grid, and then we will get the lights out procedure. But it's James Carr versus McKenzie, and the lights we await. And it's lights out and away we go for round 12 of 13 as James Carr gets a good start. McKenzie immediately tucks back into the centre of the road. James Carr off to a flyer as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 1. And as they head into the right-hander here, well, who's going to gain further back? We can see there it's McFarlane's battling side by side with Shink, who gets a roaring start off the line. The Hendricks now tucking in behind as well as they head up into the left-right sequence of 2 into 3. 2 wide they go for the majority of them as Shepka battling with Lauzon. Lauzon up the inside, there's Shepka falling back. Swierdowicz trying to get into the fight as well. But meanwhile, Hendricks and Shink make their way 2 wide into the S's. This is not 2 wide territory, and they just about survive it there as Hendricks goes all in. Meanwhile, further back, we can see that slight off track for what is Robert Abrams and Honda Civic for Yellow Flag Motorsports as he makes his way back onto the road surface. Oh, goodness me, and that's a car spearing its way off the circuit. Is that Daniel Smith, who's right off there, and with the Talksteer Racing driver steering clear of the barrier, but that was a nightmare moan. As meanwhile, Damon Mitchell under major pressure here, under braking into turn at number 6. But meanwhile, just up ahead of Robert Abrams in a brief 3 wide man's way to understand it versus Jake Welly and Jerome Bajulas. Was they make the way out right now? Abrams having to hold off behind. In fact, not 3 wide with Bajulas, but instead with Steno as they make the way out of turn 7 and down towards turn number 10 they go. Well, Abrams right now holding the position, but under major pressure already. And I think for the Alpha driver, it's only going one way, and it's going backwards right now as he makes his way down into the depression very shortly. And looking up his inside is Jacob Wally there, who'll need to make the ground as quickly as possible to try and gain places in the hunt after Justin Rhodes. But as they make the way through at the left into right, we can see that Abrams goes deep. He defends it hard as they come on through, but as they make the way across the ridge and down towards the end of this lap. Right now, Abrams is being swarmed and robbed left, right, and centre as they come through 12 and go on to the next lap while he gets ahead. So after one lap, it is James Carr who leads ahead of Logan McKenzie P2, followed up by Dan McFarlane with a great start P3, Hendricks P4, followed up by Shink P5, and it's Lauzon P6. They make the way into turns 2 and 3 once more. Wojciech Swierdowicz gaining 2 places off the start, now up to P7, being chased by Matt Shepka behind it. It's Justin Rhodes, your Delta leader, P9, followed up by David Bauer, P10, and then Connor Achitella completing the run to the best of the rest in at P11 there for Yellow Flag Motorsports, and gaining no places at the start, just keeping it calm, cool and collected. As they come down, we can see there a near mistake for Jacob Wally once again at the rear of the pitch as they make their way through. Achitella goes a little bit deep there out of 5, but brings it back together as they head up towards turn number 6 and into the right-hander. Well, we look back to Ryan Volta here, who after making some losses early on the opening lap, now trying to go on the charge versus what is Kurt Smith in front of him, and Kurt Smith losing 3 places in class, 4 overall on the opening lap. And right now, the 2 Delta drivers definitely having a compromised start, but they've got a long way to go, because remember, this race is a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's an hour's race, not 20 minutes, and therefore all the drivers right now will be looking to either settle into a rhythm or trying to gain a little bit more ground before they start to focus more on strategy. But as we look back up towards the midfield here, we see Matt Shepka currently P8, trying to hold off Justin Rhodes. He's falling a little bit further back from the top 7. Swierdowicz they're trying to make the breakaway. The Talksteer Racing driver here, I think, having to make a gradual decision. Does he fight this hard, or does he potentially let it go if he can't make the breakaway? Well, only he can tell as they make their way down and through at the final 2 quarters here to go on to another lap. But as they make their way onwards towards lap number 3, Damon Mitchell looking up the inside here of Eric Statzer for what is effectively a P17 overall. No change in class position with Mitchell, of course, being the Alpha versus versus stats of the Delta, but as they head in towards turn number 1, rolling their way up the hill once again. Well, number 74 driver, a little mistake. They're coming into the opening corner, catches the car just in time, but having to be wary of that because every time he does that, those rear tyres will start to go up through temperature once more, and of course he will not want to spike the temperature on those tyres too hard for the simple reason if he ends up getting a flat spot on the tyre, well, that is going to, in fact, be yes, it would be a flat spot on the tyre. It would really hurt the compound in the long run. But as the breakfast dinner driver here, Justin Rhodes, meanwhile P9 overall, made his way up towards turn number 6, tries to keep track of Matt Shepka in front. He's got David Bauer, his teammate in the Alpha class, behind, and well, for Rhodes right now, it's comfortable territory. And you may be wondering at this point, of course, as we see there, Mitchell up the inside of stats and getting the move done for P17. You may be wondering at this point, of course, why is it our Delta drivers are choosing to potentially battle with the Alphas? All points in this series are scored an overall position. There is no points for class position. It's all based on overall standings, and therefore, as a Delta, that incentivizes you to take as many places as possible. Speaking of places, there's Dan McFarlane taking P2 off of Logan McKenzie as they make their way into 10 and out of the chicane, and now on to the next lap they go. But McFarlane making some early progress here, and right now the number 23 driver only 1.5 seconds off of James Carr. McFarlane is the fastest man on the circuit, albeit we're only in the early stage of this race, but I wonder if McFarlane fancies his chances here today of taking a win off of our champion chasers as they make their way into turn 2. As they roll the way on through it and down the hill once again, we look back to Daniel Sedino here as he chases after Robert Avers, and Avers really struggling as they make their way through one up the crest, and will now can Sedino make it outside to inside through 2 into 3. He thinks about it, but there's no way through as we jump aboard the gearbox here of Avers. You can see there was Sedino backing out. Aaron Lahr looking up the inside. It's too wide as they come through the S's, and well, right now Robert Avers just simply able to say, okay, see you later folks. If you're going to battle like that, take all the time you need, and they've taken out of one of a whole 7 attempts there in that brief squabble. But as they make their way up towards turn 6, things settle back down temporarily, as meanwhile Jerome Bergulas were brief off, it would seem, coming into turn number 6, sliding his way into 7 there, so definitely a mistake which has cost him dear, and he's fallen back behind Jake Wally as they make their way onwards towards turn number 10. But meanwhile we've got drama there coming out of what is turn number 7. Adrian Fedorowski coming out of the grass, and meanwhile that's parked up on the side of the road. I believe that is Mark Darnell, who's had a bit of a moment there. I wonder if there was contact between the two of them. Unfortunately, of course, we can't give you a replay of the action. That's the limitation of looking back at an iRacing replay file, but definitely there, a little bit of a moment for Darnell and Fedorowski, and both of them being cost dear as a result of it. Meanwhile, Aaron Lahr under pressure from Mitchell, who tries to look up the inside, but no way through for Mitchell, just not able to outbrake the Talksteer Racing driver in the lime green machine as they make the way down for 11 and into 12 here, rolling the way through the right hand of once more. But as they come on through, we look from towards the back of the field up towards the very front, and Logan McKenzie now under pressure from Mika Hendricks. They head on through turns 3 and 4, and we jump on board here with the Hassel's Motorsports Lego machine. As they come on through the S's here, of course, for Hendricks, we saw back at Mid-Ohio the whole game plan for Hendricks at certain points was just to sit back, put pressure on and do some fuel saving in the interim, and that's the thing now as we move our way through the opening 7 minutes of this race. We are seeing a little bit of stabilisation of some positions here inside the top 10, and I wonder if our drivers' thoughts are already starting to turn towards tyre preservation and also trying to save a bit of extra fuel so that way they don't take as long in the pits. Save a couple of litres, it could be worth the effective equivalent of 2 to 3 seconds in the pit lane in the end over your rivals, as we're hearing that Ryan Walter has been involved in an incident which has seen him have to be towed to the pit. So you can see that on the times they're dropping a P24, a difficult day for the Veloster driver. But as we continue to ride on board here with Hendricks in the pursuit of that P3. Well, also I do believe Damon Mitchell's been involved in some sort of incident off cameras. He's dropping it down the order like a stone there. But as we see our top 4 rolling their way on through the chicane, and no way at the moment for Hendricks to get closer. He's just having to wait his position and turn. As meanwhile we look back here to Wojciech Swierdowicz, who's looking up the inside of Francois Street in the run to turn 12. It's going to be side by side as they make the way on through. A little bit of contact between the two of them. Next just the door bump as they make the way up towards turn 1. Well, of course, with it being such a high-speed circuit here, just a door bump, I think, doesn't quite describe what happens when metal on metal collides as they make their way through these corners, sometimes in excess of 100 miles an hour, for the simple reason when two objects collide at low speeds, in the slightest little collision can send the cars flying. But right now they both survive it as they make their way down through the S's Well, John Lauzon now under the unfathomable pressure of keeping Wojciech Swierdajczyk at bay, because there's one thing, there's two inevitable things in the world of AlphaTauri change. The first thing, of course, is that Shepka will be the Honda Civic Type R, looking to give it his best, although I know he's tuned in right now. That may make him laugh and smile a little bit, but also when you have Wojciech Swierdajczyk behind you, he's not going to be there for long unless you can find some magical way at keeping him at bay. But as they make the way through turn 6 into 7, well, right now you can see here how John Lauzon are really just trying to keep the Honda at bay, and in doing so it's causing the rest of the pack to start to concertina up as they make the way down towards turn number 10. But Swierdajczyk there going a bit slowly, and I wonder if that's a slowdown there for potential track limits as they make the way into the next corner. Well, definitely Swierdajczyk losing a lot of ground right now. It's going to actually gain a bit more time, but meanwhile we can tell you that Logan McKenzie has been passed into the chicane by Mika Hendricks there, and it's a swap of position, but it doesn't look as though either driver's lost too much time, albeit right now Dan McFarlane is definitely gaining a lot of ground in terms of hunting down James Carr, and you can see the top 4 here, and what a race leader right now. He'll be comfortable up to a point with only a 1 second advantage. I think the question will be for James Carr is how long can he keep up this pace before he has to worry about the fact that McFarlane is closing at a rapid rate of knots. In fact, a little bit of a wobble there under braking into turn 3. Interesting for James Carr. We just saw the rear of the car slightly lift up under braking onto the curb, but he's been able to settle it down. McFarlane not able to capitalise on it. I think James Carr right now is definitely being pushed up a notch with regards to the fact he perhaps wants to take the foot off the gas slightly, but he's not going to be able to, and instead he's going to have to really now have to start to put in qualifying laps in order to keep McFarlane away. But meanwhile, fastest man on circuit, Mika Hendricks on that last lap, fastest lap of the race at 28.39, and with the leaders lapping in the 28.6s and McKenzie at 29.2. But to be fair, we have to account for the pass that was made into turn 10 compromises lap time, with its top 4 all even Stevens when it comes to the times they've put it in. Indeed, it could sway at any moment in terms of who may be the fastest man on track. But meanwhile, looking back to the battle to be just outside the top 5 in the Delta class here between Spencer Cockayne, Eric Statzer and Mark Darnell as they made the way down towards turn 6. Well, Statzer right now in amongst the Hyundai sandwich as they roll the way into the right-hander. Darnell, of course, with that early mistake cost him a bit dear, and now as they make the way into turn number 7. Also there in the YouTube chat, Mark Darnell explaining that there was a Fedorowski sandwich with Kurt Swift going wide and unable to break in time. But meanwhile, we can see there Spencer Cockayne going wide, coming out of turn 7 and losing 2 places on the price of 1 as that's with Darnell come on through. Meanwhile, looking here to Daniel Smith and making his way past what is Adrian Fedorowski there as they headed into turn number 10. And the Torque Steam Racing driver continued to recover this race after the mistake on the opening lap that saw him step extremely wide in the run through turn number 5. But as he heads on through at turn number 12, once again, Daniel Swift's next target in terms of in-class is Aaron Lara, who is the best part of 12 seconds up the road. Meanwhile, Mark Darnell battling on the inside here versus Eric Statz as they come on through. And you can see there the different approaches in lines between the two drivers, with turn 12 being such an aggressive apex in terms of how the car wants to understeer, with Statzer going out as deep as possible early on. Meanwhile, Darnell on that compromised inside line, and Statzer just able to sweep back up the inside there. A bit of back and forth between these two in the hunt for P6 in the Delta class, P19 overall. But as they head their way through 2, 3 and into 4. Meanwhile, we look from them to back up towards where it's Jacob Wally here, who continues to try and chase down Connor Atchison and David Bauer before he can get to his main target, which is fellow Delta class driver and class leader of Justin Rose. But look at the long train of cars here, and well, you can imagine right now that for Jacob Wally, he'll be worried about the fact that he has the target on his back with Wojciech Swierdajczyk, the one aiming in and setting his sights to try and make the move for P11. But with the long line of cars here, I don't think anybody right now really wants to disrupt the rhythm that's behind John Lauzon. The BMW's Energy driver definitely setting the pace here, and I think everybody in a bit of a status quo mindset, although I'd say that I think Shepka's just about to upset the status quo as he's looking for the move versus Francois Schick as they make the way onto a 9th lap. Now coming into turn 1, we've not got the run initially here. If Shepka can get it done in the run into the S's, that'll bode very well. But of course, then once he's come out of the S's and through turn number 5, he does have to think about, do I really want to make the pass before we get onto that long back stretch, given the fact that stretch of straight will cost him severely when he won't have the top end. But as they come down through the S's now, you can see nobody really able to try and make the move there. Got actually caught in the mix between Barrett and Wally as they head on through 5, rolling on and upwards here. I think the thing for all these drivers as well is that they can take a little bit more fuel saving going into this lap and on to the next one. They'll take it with both hands and welcome arms as we jump aboard and look back for the gearbox here of the BBL's energy machine piloted by Francois Sheik, and that Shepka looking on strong here as they power their way out to 7 and down the back straight. But you can see here as they build their way out through the gearbox, Shepka 3 tenths as they come off the apex curve. Keep in mind as well that Sheik was 9 tenths on the back of John Lauzon going onto the straight, and therefore he's getting a distant toe, but Shepka getting closer little by little. But you can imagine if they were equal machinery, perhaps that would be where the gap closed up a little bit faster. Shepka now within a tenth. He may consider swinging for it here, go for a lunge on the inside, but doesn't consider it in the end. Decides to wait because, of course, going for a lunge early would give John Lauzon all the breathing room. And Shepka's got to try and find a way after he makes this pass to then close up to an Elantra in front of him. We may be easy in the corners, but it's easier said than done in the run on the straights as they make their way on to the next lap. And all these drivers right now, a chain of what is effectively 7 drivers in long line astern formation, if not more, as they all head into turn 1. Lovely picture there to see how close they're running. And well, of course, this is where the drivers knowledge of one another. A lot of these guys, of course, veterans of AlphaTauri Challenge. They all know one another from the early seasons, the early days, and therefore they all know who is able to go strong in certain regards and who's a bit weaker in others, and therefore they're all right now running so close together. And the same for Aaron Roberts and Daniel Steno here as they make their way down through 4 and into the S's in the battle for P14. These two definitely inching closer and closer with each and every corner turn, but Large is not able to find the way to get on through at the moment, as meanwhile Damon Mitchell a bit further back making his way on to his next lap, trying to hunt after what is Mark Darnell as they head up towards 203. But the number 74 driver here, he's close, but he's not quite able to make the move, and I think now the move is going to go far and far away from him for the simple reason it's only really one way through, one line apiece as they make their way into the S's here. But we have seen 2 wide in the past in this series and other series, but you've got to be very bold and brave. But meanwhile, speaking of being bold and brave here, well, Dan McFarlane made a bold statement early on to break into P2 and try to charge after James Carr, and with 6 tenths of a second between himself and Carr, I think he's got to be worried about the fact that Hendricks is closing up here in the battle for the lead as they all come through turn number 12. And look at the rear of the group, we can see again McKinsey just simply dropping off a little bit here, and I think this is McKinsey deciding to play the strategy game here, which is I just stay within the second of the lead group. I don't have to worry about closing up anymore, and I can start to just lift off the pace, protect the car and the tyres. Meanwhile, we see Shepka is still chasing after Sheik ever close, but Rhodes right behind him. And I wonder if Rhodes is now considering, do we need to up the tempo a little bit? But speaking of upping the tempo, well, Damon Mitchell getting a good run down the back straight, up the inside there. And Mark Darnell moves up to P20, still chasing after his Alpha peers who are quite way out the road. His next target is Daniel Smith, who, to put it in perspective, is 13 seconds clear of Mitchell currently. But Mitchell's next target for the purposes of gaining the overall position will be Statzer, as meanwhile Aaron Lahr gets on through past there. What is Daniel Sedina as they made the way into 4 in the S's. Just happening before the camera transitioned over to them, but Lahr going a little bit deep. They've got to be careful because you run a bit deep coming out of the final section of the S run, and as a result, as you head up towards turn number 6, dirty tyres and also a little bit of wound to your straight line speed, and it can lead to another move being available to the driver behind. But Aaron Lahr keeping it together just about as he makes his way out of turn 7 and up towards turn number 10. But as they roar the way on through, we can see both drivers right now doing everything they can in order to be able to frustrate the other. And Aaron Lahr here, well, he's going to have to go on the defense because you can look at the Sedano so close. But in fact, I think Daniel Sedano is giving the Alpha driver a little bit of push along here, a little bit of a bump draft in order to say to you politely go a little bit faster and hunt down Joan Bajulas. But I don't think Aaron Lahr's not trying to be fair. I think Sedano also playing the bigger picture game here, but both drivers definitely eager to move on. But Lahr goes a little bit wide and catches the dirt there as he makes his way out to turn 10B onto the ridgeline of 11, and I think Sedano may now be looking at coming back. But of course, every time these two fight into a corner, they're going to be costing one another plenty more time in the hunt after the leaders of their respective classes. They roll the way onto the next lap. But as they head on up the hill, we do look from them back up to leader here of James Carr, and well, 17 minutes complete, the first quarter down. We've still got 3 quarters of this race remaining plus the final lap, and Carr right now not able to shake off Dan McFarlane, and we can see there a good number of fans for the number 23 car, including McFarlane himself in the YouTube chat. I hope you're doing well, Dan. Indeed, to all of you tuning in, I hope you're having a great day, and the touring car racing is the perfect remedy for the run into the weekend, because right now McFarlane doing everything to try and keep a car well within honest race. stage. But again, we can see here the top three separated by a second between them, and then Logan McKenzie just lurking in the distance there, the ever-present, ever-ominous threat of the Yellow Flag Motorsports machine that doesn't want to get involved in this fight directly, but will immediately be back in that fight come the end of strategy. His car there has a bit of a poor run coming through the chicane. McFarlane gets too close for comfort and has to back the car off, but it's the first sign of a mistake for James Carr. It's building here, and I think right now Hendricks is going to look at this and think, okay, can I push McFarlane ever closer? Because they make their way across the timeline now. Hendricks will attempt as they make their way into turn number one, and with the Hassels Motorsports driver doesn't go for it here. He knows if he tries to go for a move, it's only going to cost him and McFarlane the run on Carr, and they can't afford to let Carr have a breathing moment for a second as they roll the way through. It's a mistake from James Carr. He catches it just in time, coming off the curb at turn number 3, but James Carr definitely right now not on the safety zone. He's on the ragged edge of adhesion, and as they come through the S's and into turn number 5, I think it's one mistake that could be the separation here. We've got a long way over the distance to go for that checkered flag, but these three definitely pushing one another into an uncomfortable place right now, which is they are having to do qualifying laps every lap. And when you're in that place, of course, the one thing that you cannot do as an athlete, a driver, whichever discipline, you cannot be 100% for the entire time of a 60-minute race. There's got to be a lull or a point where you start to drop below that 100% potential that you can deliver, and I think right now these three are all pushing one another to be 100% for so much time that one of them is going to find a mistake as soon as they hit the mark where they start to hit that brick wall. It says they just cannot go any further, and well, now as they make their way down towards turn 10, onto the brakes goes Dan. McFarlane looks up the inside on Carr. Carr's not able to react here, but will he go for a return to the inside? He tries to, but he can't find it. Dan McFarlane's through to take the lead for the race, and Hendricks here gets the cut back out of 10B. Down the hill they go into turn number 12, and as they roll the way through, Hendricks moves up to P2 as McKenzie inches a little bit closer there, but James Carr losing 2 places at the price of 1. McKenzie there flashing his lights, I think, to say to James Carr, look, I'm just following at the moment, I'm watching. But as they make their way through turn number 1, if McKenzie could have a proverbial bucket of popcorn on that cockpit, I think he definitely would right now, because he's definitely in the ultimate spectator seat view in P4 watching this battles. We saw another slight slide there from James Carr into turn 1, and as a result now Hendricks at McFarlane, will they try to work together to break away, or will Hendricks start to push McFarlane and try to get the race leader to make a mistake of his own? Well, as they come through turn number 5, we look back to David Bauer, who's still behind Matthew Shepker. He's got ahead of Justin Rhodes. The two breakfast dinner teammates have swapped places. I think Rhodes has decided that he'd rather focus on consolidated position at this time. As they come out of turn number 5, we can see here now the Alpha Quartet as led by John Lauzon. It's Franz Washington, Matt Shepard, and David Bauer in the run from P5 to P8, all now starting to get a little bit testy with regards to their runs out of corners here. I think now that emphasis is really shifting onto John Lauzon. He may be a little bit of a cork in the bottle with regards to the pace that the drivers behind want to unleash, but as they head on through, we look to the end of the back straight, and we see him at McFarlane having to defend in the run to 10. Hendricks getting the overspeed as they come down to the braking zone. We know that the brakes are a little bit stronger than the Veloster. McFarlane does not try to push it back on the inside, and now it's Mika Hendricks who takes the lead of this race as he makes his way over the crest. And well, both drivers will take a lead lap point because of course they've crossed the finish line leading a lap as they roll the way onto the next one. But Hendricks here definitely pushing on now, and I wonder now that he's got to the head of the pack whether he'll try and invest 5 to 6 laps just trying to make the clear break before he backs it off and accepts that he will not be clearing this group, because if he can't clear it then he won't want to use any more fuel than he can afford to do so. But meanwhile, looking here to John Lauzon, he's been passed by Francois Sheik in the run down the back straight into turn 10, with the two teammates there deciding to go for the switch, and as they make the way into 2 and 3, Lauzon now having it in his rear view mirror. Shepka in the Talksteer Racing Honda all over the back of him, but I think he'll feel safe in the Elantra up to a point as they make the way down through the S's here, all serpentine their way together in sequence there. It's like poetry in motion, albeit with approximately 300 horsepower per car here roaring on through. It's very loud, it's very intense poetry with that. I think right now all our drivers will be looking to try and put a burst into the story that is round 12 of this season as they make the way into the right-hander of turn 6. Bauer looks around the outside, Shepka defends here, but now as they make the way into 7, Shepka goes all in the brakes once again. Bauer thinks it's his time to rise, but as they come out the corner, you can see Shepka there holding firm, and now Shepka not gaining the speed he wants out of the corner. I think it's going to be a sit duck here in the run all the way down to turn 10, and this gives Lauzon and Shink the opportunity just to break away in the long run. But he's going to go for here. Is Bauer looking around the outside. Shepka's going to do everything he can in order to fend this off. I think he's battling against the current here as they make the way down. You can see already Bauer able to get ahead, but Shepka not giving in, going all in on the brakes. Bauer goes deep to the grass there, and as a result, Shepka holds on. Bauer, as he returns, makes contact with his teammate. Jacob Wally goes off to the right. In fact, Justin Rhodes goes off, and we have a new Delta leader as he looks up the inside. Breakfast for dinner, all stepping on one another's toes, and Jacob Wally takes the lead of the Delta class here as they make the way into the 23rd minute, as they brawl their way into turn number 1. I think Justin Rhodes feels though he's in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it's not over yet in terms of battles as we see here. We've also got James Carr under pressure from Logan McKenzie as they make the way into turn number 5. Carr having to fend off McKenzie in the run through 3-4, but as they roll their way in towards the braking zone for the next corner, when we are constantly having change for lead, this top 4 is not giving in, albeit you can see there's now a gap of approximately 1.5 seconds between Carr and far lane, and I wonder here whether McKenzie may have decided rather than try to push that battle for P3, he's backed off and said to Carr, okay, I've given it a shot, I'm not going to go for it anymore because we are losing the leaders now. And as the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and these two need to put aside their differences in terms of their championship campaign aspirations for the next 20 minutes and instead focus on working together to close up to the top 2, because of course right now if Hendricks can put this result in and take the win here today, that puts him right up there going into the season finale for the opportunity to be battling for at least P2, if not the win of this championship, given the fact that Swirdoich in P8 at the moment definitely is not on course to take major points away from it today, and it will go all the way to the very end. But as they make the way on towards the next lap, we do look from them to Connor Achitella here, who continues to chase after Justin Rhodes, the yellow flag motorsports driver in the 55 car. We've seen him be a bit hit and miss depending on the circuit over the course of this season, but right now missing the mark in terms of being inside the top 10, but he'll want to get one over Justin Rhodes, and also to make a point here, of course, being the reigning Delta champion, albeit promoted to class, he won't want the current Delta championship leader to take a position over him come the end of this race. But as they make the way through 1 and up towards 2, Ashell need to pick the right time to strike as they roll their way through into the tight and twisty run of the S's coming out 3 and 4, but heading on down here, all 3 drivers there with Jerome Padula just behind, and Padula trying to get into the fight for the alpha position for P10 in class versus Ashton as they make the way into turn 5. I think Padula's we're thinking whether he can potentially upset the room with Achitella and also get the move on Rhodes done in quick succession as they make the way up towards turn 6. But meanwhile, we do have some pit stops occurring. Kurt Smith and Adrian Fedorowski both into the pit lane here to take what's likely to be the one and only scheduled stop as they put the fuel in the car now. We have also had stops for what is Robert Abrams and Ryan Walter, but they've both had to retire due to technical issues. But meanwhile, we look back here to one driver right now who's got no technical issues with the car. The only issue he's got is being battled by another Honda. It's Shepka versus Swirdoich as they make the way down towards the chicane. But as they do, you can see Lowes to the Shink now 2 seconds clear as Jacob Wally looks up the inside. It's going to be a free wide almost here on the brakes. Wally goes all in, he goes for 1, he goes for 2, and Jacob Wally comes on through to make both positions there. And I don't think he was going to make the corner at first. Meanwhile, we can see that David Bauer trying to get in close, but ends up getting blocked by Shepka. And as they make the way from 11 into 12, it's side by side between the two Honda drivers. It was Swirdoich on the outside, but meanwhile Shepka on the inside, but he hasn't had the run off the corner. He's not just going to lose 2 places, he's going to lose 3 if David Bauer can make this count. And Bauer goes around the outside, he sweeps on through, and Shepka there, he's been robbed in daylight once, twice and thrice as they make the way onto this next lap. And meanwhile, just behind Connor Achitella here, now finding himself being squeezed in between Rhodes and Padulas. Well, he won't to lose that single place. He'll want to try and do a double robbery here versus what is Rhodes and try and break away from Padulas as part of that as they make the way to the end of the S's into turn 5. But Shepka they're definitely getting caught out now as they head up towards turn number 6. You can see that Padula's falling back a little bit. I think not having the run he wanted off of the left-hander at turn number 5 and having to wait to do it again. But definitely the number 99 driver having some difficulty on that turn 5 run. I think the dirtier of the 2 cars in front just upsetting that front aero balance. And as he makes his way out of the corner, again just going a little bit deep there. And those mistakes have cost him very dear in terms of being able to go on the charge. As we look to Justin Rhodes here, well now it's a battle of 2 Elantras. Close together in the fight for the right to the inside of turn 10A as they come down there. I think there's a bit of contact between that Rhodes and Achitella as Achitella tucked back in and got a bit too close to personal as they come down. Well, they settled their differences there, but I think Rhodes for that little wobble just a sign of how unstable the car became as they made their way down there in excess of 130 miles an hour. And of course, when you're going at those speeds, a tiny tap, as we said earlier, it is amplified massively as they roll the way down through turn at number 8 into the turn number 12, we should say. Into the pits comes Matthew Shepka in the 490 machine. Well, he's decided, right, he's lost places today, he's going to try and make it back on strategy, but is this a call too early, given the fact that if he comes out in clear air, he'll have enough time on circuit to be able to put in qualifying laps, but does he need a little bit of a tow in order to be able to stay right in the fight? That's the challenge here, is the fact, do you fixate your strategy around your peers, or do you decide to go with a gamble, give yourself clear air, and then hope that the way it plays out is in your favour? Well, we'll have to wait and see for Shepherds. Meanwhile, Wally here in P7 at the moment, keeping Swirdoich at bay, but you can see that Swirdoich getting ever closer as they make the way in towards turn 6, and we ride on board the rear of Wally's machine as they come through the double right. Now heading up towards the next right-hander, of course, for Jacob Wally. Does he need to worry too much about Swirdoich? Well, the thing that will be on his mind, of course, I think breakfast for dinner might be giving him a little bit of a call over the radio right now, is they'll want him to keep Swirdoich at bay for as long as possible, so that way James Carr can be given the opportunity to really gain some significant points over Swirdoich today to set up the season finale, given the fact that James Carr is one of those names in the championship fight still, and as they make the way down towards the braking zone at forward turn number 10, him in the background, of course, and well, beautiful view far for the Blint, no doubt about it, but we've got a lovely view here of our two competitors in the run through the chicane, and as they come up the hill, right now Wally getting an absolutely pinpoint precise run off the corner, down for 11, into 12 he goes. Gap standing at 3.5 tenths at the moment, but it's in the corners where we're seeing Swirdoich really make those gains, and as they roll the way onto the next lap, now to a 20th lap under race conditions, the laps are flying on by, being chalked in 1.5 minutes per lap or just under, and up the hill they go, and we can see here the representative driver continuing to feel safe at the moment, but I think Swirdoich here knows that the next pass may just be on strategy as we are inching ever closer to the pit stop window. We've already seen a couple of pit stops from drivers, and the typical runner form we have seen in these Alpha Challenge rounds is if you're in the midfield, if you're battling for somewhere between normally outside the top 5, but within P6 through to P15, your pit stop is normally localised to around 25 to 37 minutes, and it is the leaders who go the longest of everybody. And the reason for this is they do not want to come out in amongst the pack and have to fight the way between drivers who have yet to pit and those who have potentially have pitted once and have to go again. But on top of that, they do want to all try and pick up those points for lead and lap, but they don't want to give any extra points to the other drivers around them. Well, as we see our drivers breaking their way into the chicane here, that's Adrian Federowski at the head of this group. He's a lap down with the early race incident and also taking an early pit stop. So the other blue flags waving, albeit a bit hesitant to move out of the way there, and understandable because it's a very tricky circuit to negotiate back markers or drivers who are a lap down, as we say, in the fact that you don't have too much room to run with there. And well, Federowski being calm and sensible, which is wait for a section of the circuit we felt safe to be able to pull aside and let the drivers on through. But as they make the way up the hill, you see the damage it has done to Hendricks being caught up through the chicane sequence, in the fact now 2 tenths is the gap between himself and McFarlane as they make the way down the hill. Meanwhile, McKinsey, there's still 1 second, and will the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver absolutely synchronising his pace to that 1 second window behind the trio in front of him. And well, for McKinsey, I do wonder just how much fuel saving is going on inside that tyre machine right now, in the fact that the rate he's going, I think we will be seeing him jump right back into lead, or at least battling side by side on pit lane exit as they head into the right-hander of turn number 6. But as they come on through, we do look to watching Swirdoich here. We see a brief moment there for Jake Wally coming out to turn 5. Swirdoich the closest he's been for some time. 1.5 tenths here, but does he go for it into 6.9? That's going to cost him the run on the back straight. No, he waits his turn. He plays the game with patience. But as they roll the way into 7, you see the David Bauer just behind as well. And Swirdoich so close to the back of Wally coming out of the corner, but as they make the way onto the accelerator, 3 tenths is how it starts. And it doesn't really gain initially. It's only really when they get about halfway down the straight that you start to see that gap close up. And that's the problem with Swirdoich. He just has not got enough right now to be able to get this move done. I think he's going to look for on the brakes here, if anything. But will we have enough confidence in the braking of the car at the moment? And we'll answer there is no, he does not go for it once again. I think for Swirdoich, the only other thing he could potentially try to do is pit a little bit earlier than perhaps where he normally would attempt to pit and give himself the opportunity to leapfrog what is there Wally and Bauer on strategy and get himself a bit closer to both Lauzon and Schick, who are only at the moment 3.1 seconds up the road, and it could be a 3.1 second gap that he's able to jump. But meanwhile, speaking of somebody jumping into the pits, there's Jerome Bajula coming on into the pit lane from what was at the time P12 overall, P10 in the Alpha class, and in coming in, well, now this will be interesting to see. It turns out it plays out, but we look away for one moment. Wojciech Swirdoich has made his way past which Jacob Wally up into P7. Well, it was a mistake for Wally coming through turns 3 and 4, and the Polish would gain the place. He rolls his way through the S's and up into 5. Well, now Jacob Wally falling backwards a little bit further, but of course he will have another shot at Sweridorich. If he gets a good run out of 6 and 7 and keeps the gap well under 4 attempts in the run onto the back straight, then we would imagine that Lancia N's going to pull the horses and get the job done in the run to turn number 10. It's all about, does he get it done under braking, if he's got the confidence to do so. As we see there, a near miss with David Bauer, just losing the rear of the car with the rear left tyre going onto the grass. He tries to get the power down, and now with Justin Rhodes close behind, I wonder if there'll be a swap between the two of them in terms of the fact that we can see how Rhodes is so close to reach out and touch the rear wing of his teammate, and Rhodes of course wanted to go hunting after Wally, but here Bauer putting his teeth in and saying no, we're not going to, we're going to stay as we are, and I'm going to defend this if needed. And the breakfast for dinner trio go on through, but I think they're all itching at the prospect of getting one or more places over the other and gaining a couple more points. But as they head down for 11 into 12 here, they stay as they are for the time being, and we will look up to Francois Schenck, who has got John Laus on his teammate for company. The two Buzz Energy drivers staying close as they head into 1. Laus on a little bit of a tighter line there just to bleed a bit of speed on the inside line and also give himself visibility of the corner apex. Of course, when you run that close to another driver, you start to have your field of view really confined with regards to, you see it, all the rear bumper of your opponent's gone the rear of the car, but you don't see it much else necessarily. But meanwhile, speaking to seeing things here, you're seeing Mika Hendricks, your race leader, under pressure from Dan McFarlane, who goes round the outside or attempts to into turn 6. Can't quite find it, but this will put Hendricks on a defensive posture through 7. It's going to cost him a lot of speed on corner exit, but look at James Carr. He's coming out the corner, absolutely flying here, and that's going to be a drag race between the two Lancia ends, but immediately Carr tucks back in. He knows he can't make the move here. He has not got enough speed, and McFarlane will simply take the toe of Hendricks as they make their way up towards 10. As they charge the way down, it's pedal to the metal for the trio, with McKinsey still 9 attempts behind all of this. And as they break the way down the hill into turn at number 10A, well, no change now, but you can definitely feel that James Carr itching at the prospect of making some progress. And the same for McFarlane here. I think they both feel as though Hendricks should take a little bit long, but James Carr's going to gamble. He comes into the pits early, and with this, is this the right call? Well, we're going to have to find out as time turns. But meanwhile, turning another lap, Hendricks goes on to lap number 24 here as we move our way into the second half of this race. But James Carr definitely throwing caution to the wind and saying, right, I need to jump them with strategy. And I wonder if there'll be a reaction here from Hendricks, McFarlane on McKinsey on the next lap in terms of one of them coming into cut-off car. Meanwhile, John Lauzon still staying close behind Schenck, but we can see just a little bit further back, Jacob Wally still chasing after Sweridorich as they make their way up the hill into turns 2 and 3, and Achitella there in pursuit as well. Onto the back of this group now, of course, gaining places, albeit with regards to position with strategy, all still to unfold. But James Carr leaves the pit lane. Does he leave the pit lane with clear air? He does. He comes out 1.2 seconds clear of Aaron Lart, and that is critical with James Carr. He has given himself a 14-second operating window to go on at Achitella, next driver up the road. He'll break away from Aaron Lart. Of course, we'll presume that as long as he doesn't make any mistakes. But James Carr taking on the fuel to get to the end of the race, and now these are critical laps. The next couple of laps, he has got to absolutely hammer these laps in order to guarantee himself an opportunity to make the jump. If he can't make it, then he'll find himself falling back on strategy, and he may be the 4th driver in the leading quartet when they go into the second stint of this race. But James Carr will try to prove the point here that the undercut is strong, and we have typically seen it's been a mixture of the undercut and the overcut that has worked out, and normally the undercut has only really worked if you've had a lot of fuel saving to go with it. And I think James Carr has had to push the fuel tank quite hard here, so he's going to have to go all in. And well, as Mika Hendricks here goes on to another lap, personal best coming in for Hendricks and McFarlane. Logan McKinsey not pushing the tempo too hard as they roll the way down into the S's once again. Well, Hendricks staying clear at the moment, albeit the gap's 3.5 tenths as they run their way through the serpentine sequence, and McKinsey now almost 1.5 seconds back, in fact 1.7 seconds back off the leader, 1.4 seconds back off the McFarlane. I think McKinsey might be starting to feel a little bit of the pressure in keeping that gap as close as possible. But we look back to Jerome Bajulas meanwhile, and we can see here Bajulas and Shepka have both left the pits around the same amount of time, albeit Bajulas coming in approximately a couple of laps later compared to Shepka, with these two at nose to tail still, but they roll the way on through. Of course, neither of them will want to battle one another too hard because they fight each other too much, and what ends up happening here is they cost one another in terms of strategy versus the likes of Achitella, Rhodes, Bauer, Wally and Sweridorich, and that's something they cannot afford. So I think for Bajulas at this point, if he has underfueled the car in any way, this is the critical fuel saving time where he can make up the underfueling he's done in the pit lane and then go full attack come the very end of this race. But as they roll the way down, will he stay behind Shepka for long? Of course, Shepka will do everything he can to put in the laps he needs to jump back on strategy. The Torque Steer Racing driver, of course, if he hasn't got the pace to keep Gilles at bay, will there be a need to switch the two of them around for their wider gains, or will Shepka just dig in his heels and say, right, enough's enough, this place is mine? As they make their way into turn 6, they stay as they are for the time being, and meanwhile we look from them up to Swierdijk, who has broken a little bit further clear here of Jacob Wally in the hunt for P6. Wally still there though, P7 overall leader of the Delta class as they make their way on to the next lap. You can see the breakfast within the trio there of Wally, Barrow and Rhodes still in their long line formation as they head into turn number 1. Not close enough together now, the trio in order to fight one another, and I think after all stepping over the top of one another in the run through turn 10, only a few laps to go, they won't be doing that any time soon. They'll want to avoid any incidents because of course it's one thing to have an incident with another driver, it's a nightmare and it's a completely different story when that incident is with your own teammates. Of course, it doesn't make the team very happy, and particularly the team principal will not be best pleased with that. And as they make the way on down towards turn 6, the breakfast within the drivers all pushing as much as they can as they roll the way into the right hander of turn 6. They're heading on through. Meanwhile, outside of the top 15, let's not forget about the fact we also have fights further down the field. Eric Stats a third place in the Delta class at the moment, P17 overall, holding a 6-second advantage over Daniel Sedano. But Daniel Sedano not quite on the pace. The Stats are losing a couple of tenths a lap versus his rival. And well, with that in mind, I think Sedano trying to capitalise on this P4 position. And then Kurt Smith completing the Delta top 5 here as he crossed the line on a personal best of 29.267. And in fact, a very strong lap for Kurt Smith. He could yet be hunting down a top 3 finish in class. Meanwhile, speaking of hunting down top 3 finishes overall, Dan McFarlane and Logan McKenzie both into the pit lane. Hendrick stays out and goes longer. Francois Schink comes on in, but meanwhile it's a split strategy here for Beavers Energy. Lawson stays out, Schink is in, and we can see there in the rear of the picture we've got the breakfast and dinner formation making their way in. It's tea time for them as they come on in for the fuel, and well, right now we can imagine that will there be a bit of a swap between them, or will they all emerge in the same order? But it's McKenzie and McFarlane. This is the big question here as they both wait on the fuel guns at the moment, and we see McFarlane already leaving the pit lane, and McKenzie leaves about the same gap as they enter. So McFarlane has done enough here to jump back ahead of McKenzie, but has he underfueled to do this? That'll be the question as McKenzie comes back out, and he is now 1.5 seconds behind McFarlane. Well, it's a very quick stop for McFarlane. To be fair, McKenzie not too far behind on the time, but unexpected. I would have expected McKenzie to be a bit closer in terms of the times between the two drivers after their pit exit, but still McFarlane's definitely got an advantage in hand. He'll feel he's trying to play it here, but I wonder whether we may see McFarlane's pace just tiptoe off at the very end, given the fact he's really had to go for it in the early stages. But meanwhile, the one driver who's jumped ahead of them all, James Carr, of course, he jumped ahead, making that undercut before McKenzie and McFarlane, and now up to P5. That's effective, as we understand it, P2 overall, and Hendricks is now into the pit lane from the lead of the race. I look out my commentary booth window, and now this is the big pit stop here with 20 minutes left. Carr right now on course for P2 as a minimum here in terms of track position, but will it be P1? Hendricks just gradually gliding his way to his pit box. We see Eric Stats up on the jacks there, deciding to change the tyres on the car, and perhaps feeling that the tyres are heavily worn down. John Lauzon and Connor Atchell both into the pit lane as well as they come on in. But meanwhile, with the big question you're all asking is, where is James Carr? Well, he's coming on down the hill towards turn number 12 at the moment. Hendricks still in his pit box, still being serviced. He's towards the end of the pit lane, and as they make the way on down, we look to the blimp camera here. Where's Hendricks in comparison? Hendricks is coming onto pit exit, and as they roll the way up the hill, look to the bottom left of your pitch and you'll see James Carr. There is James Carr, but Mika Hendricks re-emerges and he takes the lead of this race after the pit strategy. James Carr gave it everything on the undercut, but now it's going to come down to the battle and track to the rear end if James Carr wants this. And of course Hendricks is going to have to defend, there's no question about it, but Mika Hendricks has made the jump as they've made their way through the S's, and Dan McFarlane is the back of the trio with Logan McKenzie not gaining any ground in the pits. In fact, falling back a little bit further. But again, is McKenzie perhaps playing the long game here? Is he expecting the top 3 to fight one another hard and therefore bleed lap time, and therefore give him the opportunity to be reeled back in, and perhaps he's nursing those tyres as much as possible, because nobody, of course, wants to take those tyres that will run the same tyres they started this race with. So right now the rubber will become sparse coming the end of the race, and the question is, who will have enough rubber to run it to the end as they make their way down towards turn number 10 once again? Will they roll their way on down right now? You can see the Hendricks Hendricks, the one car that does not fit in this quartet, being the Veloster versus the Elantra. But as they make the one to the brakes, Wojciech Swierdijk into the pit lane after leading a lap of this race, stayed up to get the lead lap point, and right now the overall championship leader not in this fight today, but this fight for P4 is going to have repercussions in terms of the championship battle going to the season finale, for the simple reason that if Hendricks could bring on home the win right now, he may just find himself with a shot of trying to take that championship crown come at the conclusion at Bathurst. But as they roll away into turn number 1, they've still got plenty of time to go. There's still plenty of a tail to be turned here. As they roll the way up the hill, we look to John Lauzon, who's come back out behind Francois Schink. It was a lapse difference between the two of them, but in the end, no change. But meanwhile, speaking of changes, Wojciech Swierdijk makes his way out of the pit lane, and goodness me, the man has absolutely jumped his way through the field, and this time we can confirm he's taken on some fuel with the pit lane, but he's jumped ahead of Schink and Lauzon and overhauled effectively what was a margin of 6 seconds there to move up into P5. Now that is incredible in the strategy, and well, we presume he's got enough fuel to go to the end. We're not going to curse him in terms of the commentator's curse, but it's definitely not a quick stop like Mid-Ohio went all wrong. But this one has been a solid stop, and now can he chase after the top 4 as well? We'll get the fact there is a 13.5-second gap, but meanwhile there's a bit of drama there off camera into the trees, and I believe that's Francois Schink who's gone round and into the barrier on the exit of turn 5, and Francois Schink's race has come completely unfounded, and it's gone all to the wards of the dust there. And I think John Lauzon may have also been caught up, and I think there's been contact between the two BMW's Energy drivers off camera, because Lauzon, you can look at the front right tyre from the driver's perspective, and you can see that the damage done on the car is wobbling, it's drifting from side to side. I think for Lauzon, whatever's happened here, it's the worst possible thing that could happen, which is two teammates coming to blows. But as they make the way down towards turn number 10, Shepko want to get clear of this as quickly as possible, but I think he's going to play a bit of discretion and caution as Lauzon just goes straight on there. There's no braking in the car. He just got straight on. He's going to rejoin, but he's going to take it into the pit lane, and it's a disaster for BMW's Energy late in the day here at Road Atlanta as Lauzon stays on out, and well, perhaps he's trying to get it to the end rather than coming on in, but either way, Drone Pajulas then a little bit of side-by-side versus David Bowell as they make their way through 12 and into 1 they go. On to the next lap, Pajulas looks down the outside, Lauzon there having to stay on the outside, making it 3 wide for a temporary moment, and as they make their way up the hill, Pajulas back it off there, loses out versus David Bowell, but with Shepka gaining the time, Pajulas not gaining as much here. Well, Shepka's definitely pulled a blinder to get back into this battle for his effective P6 overall, and P6 in class they make the way, in fact P5 in class they make the way on around. But you can imagine right now for Shepka, it's all go in the same for Pajulas, but if he runs that deep for Pajulas, it's not going to be go flog, because those track limit infringements will start to accrue, and he could be at risk of a drive-through penalty sooner than he knows it. But as we look up to the other driver who pitted the earliest in this group, and well, Matt Shepka right now chased after Jacob Welling, trying to make it P6 overall, P6 in the Alpha class as he rolls his way down the back straight. But of course this is the one weak point of the Honda, which does not have the top end speed, but he is right in the toe there of Waddy. He could not be closer, and in fact I think he'll be looking for the move this time. He peels out to the inside, and as they get ready to battle on the brakes, we see Shepka be bold on the brakes here before we see Wally be the same as well. It's a battle of the breakers, and as they roll the way through, Shepka up the inside, textbook pass, gets it done and moves up into P6 overall as they make their way down the hill and onto another lap. They've completed 30 laps so far. We're expecting plenty more before this is over, but as they roll the way through, can Shepka now break away and make it set in stone? It'll be a P6 today with Swierdijk 5 seconds up the road and gaining as they roll their way onto this next lap. Well, meanwhile, looking from them to the battle for the lead, we see there Hendricks going a little bit deep and wide as John Lauzon comes into the pit lane as we look out our commentary booth window, but focusing on our camera here, Hendricks, Hassel's Motorsports, doing everything he can, the good to Steiner way of course, to run it all through to the end, and digging in right now and trying to hold off James Cotton just for a straight car. We can see the damn at far lane, a little bit of a mistake, they're running wide out of turn 7, and this is where for all 3 of the drivers they've now got to push every lap. Is the qualifying lap, every lap you cannot afford to make a single mistake. Meanwhile, Logan McKenzie just sat there 1.5 seconds behind, doing another flash of his lights there, and I wonder if Logan McKenzie's trying to send Morse code signals, but either way, we see a flash of lights there for James Carr, and I think Carr tried to send a signal through to Hendricks, which is, I'm not fighting you this time, don't defend it, because the more they defend, the more they bring McFarlane and McKenzie back into this, and as they roll the way down for 11 into 12, well, Hendricks now with that pressure as they come on through once more, just so close between the pair as they make their way onwards towards another lap, and Carr taking a peek to the inside. No, the move's not going to come here, it's going to come later on in the lap if it's going to happen, and as they head up the hill, well, the top 3, keeping one another honest, and McKinsey ever looming, ever present. But as they head on through down into the S's here, Hendricks takes a little bit too much speed, but just about catches it. Meanwhile, brief error from the far lane, and well, that may have just been one of his 9 lives used up. You saw there the car just drift a little bit deep out of 3 into 4, and I think even in the far lane's heart there, if we could have a heart rate monitor, I think he may have just missed a beat, given the fact the car started to drift towards the grass. And I can tell you from experience, when you make a mistake like that and you know that if you had got it slightly more wrong than you previously had, then the car would have gone completely off and it would have been all over. It makes you second guess yourself, and McFarlane can't afford to second guess right now, because he could be on the verge of bringing home his maiden win in this series as he makes his way down the back straight once more. Meanwhile, as we look from them back to David Bow here behind Jerome Virgilio right now, with Virgilio holding him off. In fact, Virgilio making the pass quite recently on the previous lap. Getting the move for P10, P9 in the Alpha class versus Bow. These two still inseparable, for the gap between them and what is at roads ahead has opened up to a margin of what is 4 seconds now. So they're essentially fighting one another and trying to get back on the pace inside the top 10 as they roll away down the back straight. And I think we may see a little bit of a temporary riveting in the battling here between the two drivers, and they'll try to get themselves back in the hunt. But we look back to the Hunters at the front of the field. They go on to another lap, and Hendricks now, well, laps continue to trickle on down. 12 minutes to go. What does that mean in terms of lap time approximately? We're expecting about another 7 to 8 laps, including this one they've gone on to. And well, now as the time trickles down, well, I don't think any of them will want to look at the time. They'll just be focusing on the one thing that matters most. That's the tarmac in front of them and the opportunity to win. And as they head up towards turn number 5, McKinsey falling back to 1.8 seconds off here as he heads into left-hander at turn 5. And I wonder if McKinsey has just really let the car roll off it and decided, okay, I'll save it to the very end. But as they head in towards the right-hander of turn number 6, McKinsey definitely right now not getting involved. Perhaps he's just waiting for the storm that's going to, of course, we call it the calm before the storm. Further back, Jacob Wally still chasing after Shepka as they head on through turn number 5. Shepka's got Mark Darnell in front, who's a lap down, and we'd expect that Darnell at some point will see the blue flags coming and let them go accordingly. But as they head into the next braking zone here, we can see Shepka comfortably 4/10 clear, but I don't think he's able to break that gap open any further, although this time he will have the toe of Darnell, and if it works out for him, in fact he won't have the toe of Darnell, because Darnell sees it's coming immediately and says, okay, I'm just going to get off the racing line, I don't want anything to do with this. And well, of course, great awareness there from Darnell, but I wonder if Shepka may be cursing under his breath a little bit and saying, why couldn't you have just stayed on the racing line a little bit longer so I could have got some straight line speed? Well, as they make the way down towards the turn at number 10 here, you can see Wally very close but not able to make it. Meanwhile, we look back up to the front of the field, and as they head into turn 1, James Carr defending versus McFarlane on the inside. It's McFarlane's deciding right, he's ready to go on the offensive now, and Hendricks is being given a brief respite as they head over the crest of 2, down into 3 they go. We jump on board here with the privateer and the 23 at McFarlane, and as they head down into the S's this side, well, now the gloves are coming off. It's 10 minutes to go, and this is the time now where it's time to stand up and shout in terms of who is going to be the driver holds on. They all go wide there at turn number 5. Well, we love synchronized racing, but we don't love it when they all get it wrong together. But again, that shows you how hard they're pushing. James Carr not affected as much compared to McFarlane, and also Hendricks there getting it wrong. And we'll have to be careful, of course, because any instant points will start to rack up, and they won't have too many they could use come the end of this race, despite the fact they kept it clean mostly. Every little track limit infringement adds up over the course of the distance. But as they roll the way down towards the turn number 10 chicane once again, you can see here looking to our leaders, well, continued flash of lights there from McKinsey, and he does clarify being a little bit of a nuisance to the YouTube chat is Logan McKinsey. But as they make the way down towards 10, it's now Carr on the inside of Hendricks, and the lead of this race. The battle commences, and as they roll the way through, Hendricks does not fight it too hard. Instead, he looks for the run out of 10B, and over the crest and down into turn number 12 they go. And I think here Hendricks seeing the bigger picture, which is okay, take the lead for a lap and then come back at it later on in the race. And it makes sense, of course. They've still got a good amount of time remaining, albeit we say that, but you know that clock's going to count down faster than we anticipate as they roll the way through turn at number 1. Time is not standing still for anybody right now. Meanwhile, further back, Jacob Wally still all over the back of Shepka as they make the way into turn number 12. And as they roll the way on down here through the right-hander and in to turn number 1 they go very shortly. Well, Shepka looking vulnerable, but to be fair, once he does look vulnerable, he is making what he absolutely have to push the car to the maximum. Connor Achitella ever closer now, and I wonder whether the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver may be thinking about making his own move on the breakfast for dinner Delta leader as they come on down. Also, you can see there just a bit further back, Justin Rhodes, also in earshot of this battle, 2 seconds behind, in fact 1.6 seconds behind we should say, and as he comes down, he'll be thinking as well how he could get into this fight and potentially subvert expectations and take the win in the Delta class, as now 8 minutes left, and he's going to have to consider that move sooner rather than later. But Shepka here defends into turn 6 while he's looking around the outside. Of course, with a bit of camber on the road here, you can try to go around the outside all the way through to turn 7 before the road surface flattens out, and now it's all about a straight line run. Shepka gets a good run off the corner, Wally within 2.5 tenths, but he doesn't get the perfect run here. Achitella also close as they make the way on through in the charge, and we ride on board the gearbox here of the Talksteer Racing Honda, but you can see there the end badge grille getting closer and closer, and objects do not appear bigger than they seem in this camera, ladies and gentlemen. They are as they make the way down towards turn number 10, but on the brakes they go here, and Wally not close enough to try and force the hand of Shepka this time, but as they come through the left into right, you can see just behind that Achitella and also now Rhodes definitely in this fight as they make the way down into turn 12 to complete this lap, but roaring on down, and Shepka they're doing a little bit of a bob and weave for 11 into 12, trying to break as much that toe as he can, for the simple reason I think he's very conscious of the fact that if he can break the toe, then he'll just be safe on the next set of corners. And as they come into turn 1 once again, we look back up to the battle for the overall and the Alpha win here, as James Carr continues to lead, heading up towards turn number 6. The gap open to 7.5 tenths here. It does seem as though the breakfast for dinner driver has struck the chord at the right time, and as they head into turn number 7 right now, Will McFarlane ever close. Meanwhile, we look back into Shepka versus Wally. It looks as though Wally going around the inside to outside and gets it done through the S's. We don't normally see a pass there, but Jacob Wally getting it done, and now the dominoes will fall here in the fact that Achitella will see the compromised speed of Shepka and thinking about making it happen, but Shepka immediately puts it off centre in the middle of the road and says no, only one at a time if it's going to happen. And as they come through turn number 7, they all stay nose to tail here coming out the corner, but of course now Shepka will be blighted by the fact he'll gain the toe of Wally in front of him, but in return Achitella gaining the double draft here, and he'll still feel a bit vulnerable as they make the way up to top gear, roaring all the way down through the kick of 8 already, heading into the kick of 9 very shortly, and as they get ready to battle on the brakes here, will Shepka try and come back? He's thinking about it here, he knows he's got to retaliate sooner rather than later. It's going to be 3 wide, it's facts 2 wide as they make the way into the braking zone. Shepka on the inside, while he doesn't back out, holds the inside of turn number 10B, and as they roll the way out, Achitella looks at the cutback, but there's contact there with Rhodes as they make the way over the crest and down. Shepka still not giving up as they make the way through 12. He knows he's got to pounce whilst Wally's vulnerable, but Wally holding on. Now Achitella tries to come back here in the run to turn 1. Shepka covers him off, up the inside he goes. It's going to be a compromised line here. Achitella trying to go round the outside while he's safe, but as they roll the way up the hill of the battle for P7, Achitella still trying to get his nose on the inside into 2. He's then as contact door to door between the two of them. Shepka defends here into 3. He's putting his foot down here and saying no, I don't want to lose him, but I think it's going one way as they make the way to the Essex. It's 2 wide down. They're not going to make it surely through here. 2 wide all the way they go. Achitella on the inside into turn 5. He makes it count, but Shepka's still there, and as they come out the corner, Shepka keeps himself ahead for the time being. This is phenomenal stuff, and right now, we'll say what you will about the Honda, but this is why he is the guy. If you want somebody to look at racing Honda Civic Type R, he makes the little Honda go, and well, VTEC may not have kicked in on the straights, but it's definitely kicked in the corners, as Achitella is thwarted there. What beautiful racing, and I don't think we're done yet, because it's all kicking off at the front of the field as well, and as they make the way down through turn number 12 onto another lap. 5 minutes to go. James Carr leads, but you can see Hendricks now only a 10th off as they make the way up the hill, rolling on through here. James Carr now having to park it on Apex, and as they come up the hill, Hendricks looks around the outside to inside here, going through 2 into 3. There's a bit of contact. James Carr's giving a tap on the rear. He collects the car just in time, but as they make the way down through the S's, we jump over the gearbox of the race leader, and you can see there just how much damage that does in terms of the gap between the group as they make the way into turn number 5 and heading on through. Don McFarlane there is not done either, as Dan McFarlane looks onto this battle and thinks, right, if Hendricks can't get it done, then I'll get it done myself, rolling up his sleeves. But as they head into turn 6 right now, James Carr's been given a breather and rolls his way out, but makes a bit of a mistake there coming out of turn 6 into 7, makes a ham sandwich of the exit curve, and as he rolls his way out of 7 now, he'll know he can't afford to go any wider there, even a slight millimetre further wide, and he would have been into the inside wall. But as they come down through the back straight here and up towards turn 10, the top four separated by only a second, as Logan McKenzie now, well, he's decided to deploy his secret weapon, which is, I think, he's conserved the fuel and the tyres all the way to the end of this race. Now well within sight of taking the win of this one. And as they make the way on through the chicane, well, McKenzie's got to make 3 passes to get this done. And as they come across the ridge and down into turn number 12 here, with the amount of time remaining, they will have 2 more laps. In fact, I think they may actually be able to squeeze a third in, given the fact they've gone onto this with 3 minutes and 4 seconds to go. It is going to be incredibly tight, but if they battle one another hard enough, those lap times are going to tumble above 1.5 minutes. I think then we will see only 2 laps remaining. So right now, which way do you go here? Do you push it hard? I mean, it's only 2 laps left, or do you decide to creep into a third lap left? Well, as they make the way down the hill, rolling through the S's, nobody able to attack so far. All line astern in the quartet as they roll the way through 5, but you can see there equal gaps between all of them. It is 4 tenths from car to car to car to car, and with that, it just goes to show how equal they are on pace right now, how the tyre degradation is all levelling them up as well. And as they make the way into 6 to 7, rear brakes absolutely burning hot right now. You can see them glowing red hot here in all 4 of the Hyundai cars as they make the way out of the right-hander at 7, and now the brakes are being tested just as much as the tyres. Meanwhile, looking back to Shepka, he's still close behind Jacob Wally as they make the way out of turn 5, up towards 6 they go. Wally not being given any opportunity to take a breather here. The Delta leader being made to work for that P6 overall. There's no question about it. And the little Honda that could continues to fight on versus the Elantras as they make the way through 6 into 7. Meanwhile, we look back up to the leaders, and as they make the way towards the end of this lap, coming up through, James Scott almost goes overly wide. He just catches the car in time. He's going to have 2 more laps to go as he heads on down the hill, given the fact we're just going to go on to the next lap with over 1.5 minutes remaining here. So we will have 41 laps. But meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, Jacob Wally and Matt Shepka exchange places. Shepka gets ahead in the run down towards 10B. But as they make the way to the brakes, he actually up the inside. He goes to win here on the brakes. And Wally's going to defend it hard here through 10B. They roll the way out of the corner complex. And as they do, Ashton being made to wait. And this is exactly what Shepka needs right now. He needs the 2 of them to take the gloves off and box one other position. He does not need the 3 Elantras all staying behind him here, which is the equivalent of the 3 Musketeers right now. But rather than fighting for common good, they're fighting one other position as they make the way into another lap. They're heading on up the hill. Now for Adsteller, it's all about clearing one place and then potentially hunting down Shepka on the final lap if he can. But as they head on down into the S's here, I don't think Adsteller's got enough right now to really force the move early as we jump on board for a brief moment with the number 55 driver as he heads on down through the S's, taking a very aggressive approach there. Wally all over the shop as they make the way on through. But to be fair, when we say that, keep the car consistent, but just hitting those apex curves as aggressively as possible there. I think the tyres have had enough, and right now, when the tyres have had enough, it's all about just digging in the car and making it count. But meanwhile, we cut to the lead here as James Carr and Hendricks battle their way into 10A, and as they roll the way on through. And James Carr still too wide as they exit out of the chicane. It's going to be too wide all the way down through the depression into turn 12. And as they roll the way through, 1 more lap to go. James Carr on the inside here as they head on to the final lap. Dan McFarlane gets close as well. Heading to the braking zone for turn number 1. It's going to be 3 wide into the opening corner here. McFarlane goes in hot. Hendricks around the outside. It's reverse Moses manoeuvre, and with it, Hendricks takes the lead. McFarlane's into P2, and James Carr is pushed back 2 places as Logan McKenzie continues to watch. But for how long can the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver just watch their way and listen to it, in the fact that he's just not being able to make the moves? And with it now, is he leaving it too late? Was they make the way through the S's? Hendricks leads onto this final lap. Jacob Wally's into the pit lane for fuel right at the end, which is a disaster. Not expecting that 41st lap, there's no question about it. McFarlane take a look to the inside there, flashing the lights as well. McFarlane decides to throw every trick in the book here to try and distract Hendricks, but the Hassels Motorsports driver knows all the tricks of the book. And as they make the way out to turn number 7, now it's do or die here. Who's going to be the winner as they make the way down the back straight? This is going to be the last long run as they head on down here. Just shy of a kilometre separates them from the final major braking zone. And as they head all the way down to Hendricks leads, but of of course, with three Elantras hungry for that Veloster behind. He's going to have to go defensive here. McFarlane's made to go to the outside as they head onto the brakes into the chicane. McFarlane gets his nose ahead, but Hendricks outbrakes him into the corner. Make sure to stack them all up, and as they roll the way out to turn number 10B, heading up the hill. Hendricks hasn't got the run. They come down for 11. McFarlane's going to try and go around the outside. There's contact between the two. McFarlane sent to the grass, and as they come out the final corner, it's Hendricks who wins in late contact. James Carter P2, Logan McKenzie P3. Dan McFarlane will get on through P4, albeit backwards across the line, and then it will be Wojciech Swierdowicz who finishes P5 ahead of very shortly what will be Matt Shepka, who comes on through. We've seen Adrian Fedorowski P17 there, but Shepka holds on to P6 all the way to the finish and comes on through to take the lead position of the rest of the pack as he rolls his way across the line there, head of Kodachta P7. Justin Rhodes comes on through to take the win in the Delta class late in the day with that late pit stop for Jacob Wally. Jerome Bajaz P9, David Bauer P10, and then it will be Francois Schink who comes on through to take P11, best of the rest there, ahead of Jacob Wally, who makes his way on around, and well for the breakfast for dinner driver. He's robbed of a win by his fuel tank in the end, but he'll take P2 all the same. Aaron Lahr P13, and then it will be Daniel Sedino P14 there for Hassholz Motorsports, completing the Delta podium ahead of Daniel Smith. Across the line P15, and then the last of our finishers on the lead lap on his debut today. We wasn't quite able to take the fight inside the top 10, but at the same time we'll still have enjoyed the race, and no doubt it'll be Damon Mitchell in the 74, the privateer, who makes his way to the line. 16th for the last of our finishers on the lead lap, and we also had the finishers a lap down of Adrian Fedorowski and Mark Darnell, with the retirees of Kurt Smith, Eric Statson, John Lauzon, Spencer Cockayne, Robert Abrams, and what was Ryan Volter. But what a fantastic race from start to finish, ladies and gentlemen, albeit it does look as though with the contact there between Hendricks and McFarlane, it may have been a little bit of a contentious one, but I do see there in the YouTube chat Dan McFarlane saying it was my mistake, glad Mika got the win. So what a phenomenal race all the way to the finish, and when that goes to show you how close it is in this touring car racing. And to be fair, some of you might right now think it's a shame there was contact on the final corner, but it happens in touring car. If you've been long-time followers of British Touring Car Championship, particularly in the Super Touring era of the 90s and the early noughties, you'll know how the contact has played out. But at the same time, our drivers, when they go for it here, it's because they absolutely love it and they respect one another, and respect was given all the way. And well, for Logan McKenzie, just not his day today to find the win, but still on the podium at the very end, and what a thriller all the way to the finish. And that sets us up for what is going to be a crescendo come the season finale in a week's time. But let's not look ahead, let's look to now and give you those race results. Well, we can see here after 60 minutes of racing action, Mika Hendricks taking the win in the end by less than a tenth at the finish line. In the end, it was a margin of what was 7.5 hundredths as he crossed the line in absolutely superb fashion ahead of James Carr, the Hassholz Motorsports driver, keeping breakfast for dinner at bay, and then Logan McKenzie for Yellow Flag Motorsports completing the top three, only a further tenth behind. Dan McFarlane, the privateer at P4 there, missing out on the podium, but still pleased with the result. No doubt about it, in the battle for P4 with Wojciech Swierdowicz there. P5, the privateer, using the strategy to his advantage to jump his way into P5 and set himself up for success in the season finale. And then Matt Shepka, P6, the Torquesteer racing driver, putting the hammer down and indeed throwing everything at it. In the words of Gandalf the Grey from Lord of the Rings, "You shall not pass" was his motto today, and Shepka delivered on that for the most part ahead of Yellow Flag Motorsports' Kelna Achtela, with Justin Rhodes there, P8 overall, and your winner in the Delta class. And with that win, that will effectively seal his championship win in the Delta class, which of course will be awarded to him in the conclusion of the season finale. But I believe that will be enough to keep him safe going into the season finale effectively on mathematical points. Jerome Bajaj P9 there for Beaver Buzz in a difficult day for Beaver's Energy as a whole, but their highest finisher in the end with that late contact between Francois Schink and what was John Lauzon. And then David Bauer completed the top 10 there for breakfast dinner. Not quite on the pace of the top 5 today, but still digging in for a P10. Best of the rest there, Francois Schink P11, ahead of Jacob Wally P12 there, the breakfast dinner driver, second place in the Delta class, and we're missing out on the win due to the fact he didn't have enough fuel to get that 41st lap in. And then Aaron Lahr P13 for Torquesteer Racing, ahead of Daniel Sedano, who completes the Delta podium, P14 overall, P3 in class for Hassholz Motorsports. And then Daniel Smith P15 there after an early mistake cost him dear at turn 5 on the opening lap. The Talksteer Racing driver not able to recover inside the top 10, but battling to P15 ahead of last of our finishers on the lead lap. Damon Mitchell there, the privateer on his debut, P16. Then finishing a lap down, Adrian Fedorowski for QZ Motorsports and the privateer of Mark Darnell. And as we continue our way down the standings, we had our retirees of Kurt Smith from Not Last Motorsports, P19, and he'll be classified there. The same for John Lauzon, he'll be classified at P20, having completed over 50% of the race for Beaver Buzz after that late contact, as we understand it, between himself and his teammate Francois Schink. Eric Statzer there, P21, the privateer, retiring at 11 laps from the end. And then our drivers will not be classified in terms of they'll be classified as did not finish because they didn't complete 50% of the race. Spencer Cockayne listed P22 there for Assholes Motorsports, retiring 25 laps for the finish. Robert Abrams, 37 laps for the finish for Yellow Flag Motorsports. And Ryan Volter, the last of our finishers there, the privateer, 37 laps from the finish was when he retired from the race. But congratulations to all drivers in what was an absolute thrill of a race today. And well, the big question you may now all be asking is, how do the championship standings look with all the stewarding verdicts, of course, done and settled? How do the standings look going into the season finale? Well, of course, we can update you on that, and we can see here for Wojciech Swierdowicz, 632 points. He still has the lead going into the finale, but it is an advantage that has been cut down again to 40 points. It does mean that the championship can still be decided in Bathurst. It is not mathematically impossible with the final round of the season be a round that cannot be dropped, but Wojciech Swierdowicz leading the way. It's a sizable advantage, but will it be enough should it all go wrong on the mountain? Logan McKenzie, meanwhile, P2. He holds on to P2, but you can see the three-way fight there for second place and the right to take on the Polishman who sits at the top of the standings. McKinsey only 15 points clear of Mika Hendricks, who in turn is only 6 points clear of James Carr. It could not be closer between the three. Francois Schink in P5 there in the conclusion of the top 5 now, 100 points off of the top 4, but also well clear of Matthew Shepka by a margin of what extends now to what is there, I do believe my maths is correct, 56 points, although don't quote me on that. In fact, it's 66 points as we do the maths in our head, and Shepka there now leading the fight to be the best of the rest outside the top 5 in that P6 position in a margin where it is 21 points clear of Connor Achitella, with Jerome Bajula's only a further 3 points behind. And then Justin Rhodes, P9 there, your Delta Championship leader, 366 points with an opportunity to potentially finish P6 come the end of this championship if results go his way in the season finale. But with those 366 points, as you'll see very shortly, he is now mathematically uncatchable by his Delta peers, and he is effectively your Delta champion. Congratulations to him. Of course, we'll give him the formal celebration. Congratulations come the end of the season finale at Bathurst. David Bout, P10 there, now what is 41 points off of Justin Rhodes, but the breakfast for dinner drive's going strong still. And as we look outside the top 10, we can see only 2 points behind in what was a tough day today. Robert Abrams of 323 points, falling outside the top 10, but ahead of Jacob Whaley there on 280 points. Second place in the Delta class ahead of Eric Statzer, who has jumped back ahead of Kurt Smith, with Kurt Smith having that retirement today. And then we can see that John Lauzon in P15 on 217 points, falling down the field a little bit further with the difficulties. It's not been his season, but he'll be looking to bounce back in the season finale and carry that momentum into season 7. Daniel Sedino, meanwhile, on 176 points, now clear of Adrian Fedorowski by what is there 24 points. And Kurt Klein, a further 30 points back in P18, ahead of Mark Darnell and Dom Savio. And as we look outside the top 20, Dan McFarlane with the result today moves to P21. Of course, the rookie Alfie driver, who is debut in this season. We're looking to try and get inside the top 20 come the conclusion of our final round, with James Logston at 2 points behind. And it's Gus Blondell, Jason Landry, Daniel Smith, Charlie Pouillet, Michael Cochran, Mark Senegal, Spencer Cockayne and Samuel Cran completed the run of the top 30. And then to look from P31 to P40, we have Robert Schwenkler ahead of Aaron Lahr, with Wiley Cox, Joseph Etzel and Tyler Montana's completing the run to P35. And on equal points but ahead based on the result countback, Michael McLeod ahead of Aaron Hall, with Sisman Bajuk, John Hinman and Alex Kotlowski completing the top 40. And as we continue our way to P41 through to P50, of course, some of these drivers being part-timers in the series. Tony Roma ahead of Ryan Volter, and Volter not picking up any major points today, of course, with the very early retirement. Mark Crawford at P43, ahead of Michael Zepp, Ian Maddox, Benjamin Harris, Katie King, Gurkin DeVere, John Lynch and James Vance. And then completing the run to our 56th and final driver, we can see it's Ethan O-Ring, Corey Allen, Joe Camilleri, Stephen Shalafu, Ryan Winfield and Mark DeBoer. But we look from our Drivers' Championship standings then to our team standings, and what we can see here is that going into the season finale, Breakfast for Dinner now have an advantage of just shy of 300 points over Yellow Flag Motorsports. Now, does this mean they're uncatchable, I hear you ask? Well, I do believe that they are practically certain to take the championship now. I think there is a slight possibility, but it is a remote one. I could be incorrect on that, but Breakfast for Dinner are the assumed champions going into the season finale, unless the results were to go incredibly against the run of form. Effectively, they'd need to retire, and Yellow Flag Motorsports would need to steal all of the top positions in succession. So, well, we'll have to wait to see how it goes at the season finale, but Breakfast for Dinner have practically got it wrapped up, and now Yellow Flag Motorsports and Beaver Buzz Energy separated by less than 100 points there, with Hassholes Motorsports less than a further 100 behind. The gap between the teams with Hassholes Motorsports and 960 points there, with a rounding error to the 1,155 points, means that any of the trio could finish technically in P2 come the end of the season. And then we have Torque Steer Racing in P5 there. In a bit of no man's land, not close enough to change for the top four now, but well clear of the rest of the pack, with Not Lost Motorsports at 230 points in P6, and a QZ Motorsports, and then back of the pack Racing at 41 points, rounding off our team's championship standings. As we make our way then into our season finale, it is now time to wrap up for us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed the show today and you want to know more about the Alpha Touring Challenge, whether you're sat there right now thinking you just want to interact more with the drivers, or perhaps you enjoy touring car racing and want to get yourself signed up for Season 7, which is not too far away, and we'll tell you more about that, of course, in the broadcast next time out, then why not check out our official website? That's the alphatouringchallenge.wordpress.com website. Alternatively, if you want to head straight to the heart of interactive of all the drivers and the organisers, you can of course join the official ATC Discord, invite link available on screen. But now, ladies and gents, we turn our attention to the flight to Australia, because round 13 awaits us round the corner, and whilst the racing action will occur on Monday the 20th of February, we'll bring it to you as if it were live on Friday the 24th of February. We have had 12 rounds that have seen us go all the way round the globe, from America to continental Europe and to Japan, but we settle the dust and settle the score in Australia as we see our drivers try to tame and conquer the mountain that is Mount Panorama. But who will emerge our champions in the Alpha and the Teams Championship? We've already wrapped up our Delta Championship. It has gone the way of Justin Rhodes, but we've still got two more champions to crown, and who will they be? Find out next time, but until then, we have been the Alpha Touring Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, have a fantastic weekend. Remember to stay well, stay smiling, stay safe, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.